This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. What's going on? Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you on a packed show coming out of a big win for the Winnipeg Jets last night in Motown. Jets now on a 3-game winning streak. 4-3 on the season, getting ready for the Montreal Canadiens tomorrow night. It was a great game, 4-1 win in Motown last night, starring the hometown heroes, Connor Hellebuck and Kyle Connor. We'll dig into that a little bit, and Ken Wiebe's going to join us from the road. Little recap of last night, a look ahead to tomorrow night against Les Canadiens at the Bell Centre in downtown Montreal. Of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are finishing up their regular season in Calgary. Eddie Tait's going to jump on at the bottom of the hour today to get the latest on the Blue Bombers, who's in, who's out, how the team is handling this final week, and getting ready for a bye week and watching a little football next weekend to see whether it's the BC Lions or the Calgary Stampeders coming to Winnipeg for the West Final on November 11th. Don't forget, while we were on the show yesterday, got some great news for Winnipeg fans. That Jets-Dallas game, November 11th, originally scheduled for 3 p.m., has been moved to 2 p.m., so we'll be able to finish up at the downtown arena and get to your couch, a bar, or better yet, IG Field for the 5:30 kickoff for a trip to the Grey Cup. So Ed Tait coming on, Ken Wiebe as well, and it's Friday. You know what that means. A visit from the legendary Lee Hacksaw Hamilton with the NFL Notebook. Full slate of games this week. Nobody on the bye in Week 8, which is a little strange. But we'll get to that. And by the way, if you missed the Lock Shop, just finished it up with the fellas over at the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. The picks are in. Hit our partner parlay last night again. And, well, before I bring in Michael Remis, shout out to Nikolai Ehlers and Kyle Connor. First period, hitting those goal props and the shot one as well. So it was a nice day in the Lock Shop. You can follow or subscribe to the Lock Shop podcast wherever you're getting Winnipeg Sports Talk. Just search Lock Shop. All right, just before we bring in Remo, a big shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Consolidated Supply, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, F Apparel, Nick and Nicky DQ, Wallace and Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, and Aquatech, and Modern Man Barber Shop. Michael Remis, what is up? How you doing?
I'm feeling good, Huss. This is kind of reminding me of last season now. In the first couple of games where the Jets got off to a really good start, you're like, hey, this, all the talk about the offseason and changes and moving guys, you're like, hey, this team's actually pretty good, Huss. Had a little nervous. It could have been a turning point, not to the season, but, you didn't want to lose that game to Edmonton and go, 1-3? And
1-4.
Or 1-4, sorry. And then they win that game, win against St. Louis. And now you win again against Detroit, who was on this heater and had this power play running at just over 40%. And you go in, hey, we've talked about homecoming games, Huss, in Minnesota. It hasn't gone well. There were homecoming games in Detroit. Maybe it's pretty good there. Hellebuck with a big one. Kyle Connor, as you said, getting on the board. So I think if you're the Jets, you got to be feeling pretty good heading into this game tomorrow against Montreal.
Yeah, what did Will Ferrell say in Old School? It's time to go streaking?
Yeah.
Maybe they can get on a little bit of a streak right now. 3 wins in a row for the club and, a real strong performance last night. Listen, that was just a great game. Like, I thought that as far as entertainment value, listen, maybe you'd like a few more hits, although there were some big hits. Adam Lowry throwing his body around. Maybe not a ton of physicality in it, but I mean, a game that was, two fast teams that were turning the puck over, making their opportunities count. Ideally, obviously, it didn't for the Detroit Red Wings. But man, there were so many performances on the Winnipeg Jets that stood out last night. Well, we got to start with the guy in the pipes. Remember, we talked about an un-Connor Hellebuyck-like first week for the Jets starting goaltender with those first three performances. He has not looked back in these last three wins in Edmonton, of course, at home against the St. Louis Blues, and arguably his best game of the season last night, making 35 saves on 36 shots, only allowing one to get past him that he really had absolutely no chance on. This is the guy that they've invested the money in, and he's showing why the Winnipeg Jets had that confidence in him. What a performance by Hellebuyck to start it off.
Yeah, the first couple of games of the year when they were losing, they were playing so well, but they weren't. You look at the goaltending advanced analytics, goal saved above expected was in the negative. Well, yesterday has 2.35 goals saved above expected. Pretty impressive numbers, and as you said, he was great on Saturday in that win against Edmonton. Great again yesterday, stopping 35 of 36 shots. So that's what you want from him. That's why you paid him the big bucks. And as Mason Appleton said after the game, we have him. That's why we're going to be a real good team. And watch out for the Jets here in the Central. Again, not a very great division, but you have to like their chances against who they're going up against. And I don't know if you'd put them after Minnesota, but there they are right now, third behind Colorado and Dallas.
Hey, listen, they'll have a chance to see the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche in the very near future. This team's focusing on the present right now, and that was a great test in Detroit against a team that had been very, very good to start the year. And Connor Hellebuyck had to be his best to make some of those big saves. I thought the Wings, like the second period for my money, Remo, at times the Jets were absolutely dominating, but then it would just completely flip, and then the Red Wings would be running around the Winnipeg Jets end. Like, there were great chances on both sides. Probably could have seen plenty more goals on both sides of things. But the goaltenders, in particularly Connor Hellebuyck, stood up and had a big game. Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele were all over the place last night. Connor scoring early to get things going for the Winnipeg Jets, and then Nikolai Ehlers with his first of the year. Two big goals by the most important of Winnipeg Jets wingers. But I'll tell you what I think a lot of people were talking about after the game was the goal that didn't go in. An absolutely world-class behind-the-back pass from Mark Scheifele that I think was so good it even surprised Kyle Connor, and he wasn't able to roof it. Scheifele's play continues to impress. He's absolutely engaged in the guy that the Winnipeg Jets were hoping they would have when they signed him to that extension. They had made a lot happen last night. Kyle Connor could have had a couple more, but man, that play from Scheifele was special. He generated a ton last night.
Yeah, that would have been one play you'd see all over the highlight reel going around the net, and the kind of no-look drop pass just missed Kyle Connor, hitting him on the sweet spot of the stick. We talk about the power play, special teams coming in, always been huge this season. The Jets, limiting Detroit, 0 for 2. But the Jets had chances in the first period to get out to a lead on their own power plays. You would have liked to see them convert, but were not able to. They were going 0 for 3, but scoring first, huge. Cole Perfetti, not a ton of ice time yesterday for that line, but he's made some real nice passes, all season. And there he was yesterday finding Nikolai Ehlers, who made a really nice move to cut to the middle and shoot, and he got it on net this time. I think it was Murat on Wednesday saying when he's had chances, he'd skied them a couple field goals over the glass. But that one was, that was quick, earn and fire. And I'll be honest, that first, the first part of that first period, I was like having flashbacks of James Reimer last year stoning the Jets when he was on the Sharks, and they needed a win, and they, did everything but beat him. But thankfully, they were able to beat him yesterday a couple times.
A real strong game for the Lowry line last night, and Mason Appleton ending up with a goal and an assist, as did Nino Niederreiter. Nino icing the game with an empty netter. But maybe the most impressive play was one that didn't go in. We just talked about that with Mark Scheifele. But the three-way passing between Nino, Adam Lowry, Nino, and Mason Appleton on the third goal that gave the Jets that cushion when Detroit was really pushing, an absolute beauty. And, Appleton, he's finding himself in places to score. And while they haven't always been pretty, he's making it work right now. And I think he's far more suited playing along with Nino Niederreiter and Adam Lowry. They had a real strong game last night, not just defensively, but making some things happen in the offensive zone, and a real highlight reel goal to put that one away.
Yeah, Mason Appleton, what a start to the season for him in terms of getting on the score sheet. Has 7 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. Last year, he had 16 points in 41 games, so he's already a third of the way there in fifth of the games. So he's off to a great start. And, we had said when they put him on the top line, he's kind of out of his role. But, him and Adam Lowry together have been so good for so many years. And adding Nino, a big body, a guy who, he can score, but he can also, go in the corners and dig it out and play physical. That line has been such a match. And you look, keep calling them the third line, but the way their ice time has been, they might even be, they could be the second line. They're definitely the shutdown line. They got them against the top guys. Those guys have been pretty great. So, they were definitely the second line yesterday in terms of minutes, and have been actually a couple games here.
Yeah, that's not surprising. What was a little surprising, I think, when you looked at the game sheet afterwards, was a relatively quiet night ice time-wise for the Ehlers line, along with Nemetsnikov and Cole Perfetti. Now, Ehlers spent just about 4 minutes out on the power play. Nemetsnikov had 2 minutes just about on the power play and a similar amount of time shorthanded. Perfetti, for his part, did have 151 on the power play, but no time shorthanded, which is not surprising, but only 849 even strength. And we'll get to a comment from Scott Arniel in a minute. I guess, things were going well the way they were running the lines, but you'd have to think, I thought that all those players were dangerous last night, and we'll hear from this in a minute from Scott Arniel. He even copped to it afterwards, needing to get those guys out on the ice a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. You look at the 5-on-5 ice time by line. Money Puck has these numbers. The Barron, Kupari, Gustafsson line played 18 more seconds or whatever, 17 more seconds. Can't even add, whatever, 22 more seconds than the Ehlers, Perfetti, Nemetsnikov line. I think you would like to get those guys out. They're, I don't know how much they trust them in terms of holding leads, but you look at how they've played. That Ehlers, Perfetti, Nemetsnikov line together has 11 shot attempts for, and only 4 against. No better way to protect a lead when you have the puck and the other guy's in and you're ripping shots. But I think it just shows you how much they trust all the lines now equally, and we haven't seen that for a couple of years. The Kupari Barron line getting significant minutes as well. And the Kupari was the player with the lowest ice time, 849, and Gustafsson over 10 minutes as well. Barron over 10 minutes because those guys are killing penalties. But I think it's good for the team when you don't have your fourth line who's not contributing, playing 5 minutes a game. It's incredible, how evenly balanced this team is.
Yeah, that certainly is a good thing, but at the same time, I know, well, let's get to it. We'll hear from Scott Arniel. He did talk about, the Ehlers line and needing to get them in a little bit more, but we'll start it off right at the top, Remo, with one. This was interim head coach Scott Arniel post-game talking about his club's 4-1 road win at Little Caesars Arena against the Wings.
Yeah, we knew they were coming. We were in that third period, and they did. And they're a quick team and they're a skilled team, and they've got us back on our heels. But I thought after that we finally got to that timeout and kind of reset ourselves and got going and did a better job of managing the puck. But real proud of the effort. Everybody chipping in, sort of lots of good things from all the lines.
Yeah, that was sort of my my takeaway talking with the fellas after the game. That it's not like that was done on the back of one player. Certainly Connor Hellebuck was brilliant, and you're not winning a game like that against a quality team on the road in Detroit unless you get good goaltending. he was really good. But, I mean, you could look at all of the lines at particular times in the game making big impacts. Nikolai Ehlers and Nino Niederreiter both got their first goals of the year. Scott O'Neill talked about those two players and maybe a bit of a monkey off the back.
Yeah, no, you know what? I thought Nick, that was his best game of the year, and just had a little trouble here getting going, and without missing all of training camp. And I thought tonight he skated great. He held on to pucks, made some real good plays, and was good on the power play. With Nino, that line is, we are trying to match him up as much as possible against Larkin's line, and when you can score, when you're playing against those guys, as they did twice, that's big. And he's a big power forward, and he plays that way. He's hard to defend.
And a key, a little bit there from Arniel. That Lowry line, with Niederreiter and now with Appleton after the switch with Iafallo. I mean, for them to be able to contribute the way they did offensively, but also job number one was trying to limit one of the hottest lines in hockey in Dylan Larkin. I mean, that's exactly what you want from that group. And it was nice to see Nino get rewarded after being a little snake bit, to be honest, over the first half dozen games this season.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Wes. I know it's an empty netter, but I mean, he's been overdue. And again, quietly, he's got 4 points in 7 games, and he's a guy who scores 20 in his sleep. And you're thinking, like, what a great ad. It's kind of funny. You've been mentioning all week, like, how we talk, this is the same Jets, but how you keep saying the 5 forwards that are different than the beginning of the season last year. And Nino Niederreiter was such a great acquisition at the deadline. That they had him under contract again for this year, and I wonder if they're going to look to keep him after this season because he's fit in so well, basically wherever he's played, and he brings a skill set that they didn't have a lot of. So nice to see him get on the score sheet, even if it's empty netter. He was owed for earlier in the season, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this line continues to play together so well with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton.
Yeah, really strong game for that line in both ends, and again, just a beautiful passing play between the three of them on Appleton's goal that put the Jets up 3-1. Arniel was asked about Cole Perfetti, how he's doing in the eyes of the coach after moving to the wing, and that line overall that certainly had their moments last night, but as we mentioned off the top, didn't quite see as much ice time as you'd normally assume.
I like that line, yeah. That line was real good again. I got to get them out in the ice a lot more. The game was getting tight, and you want to kind of shut it down. But I do need to get them out there a little bit more often. But I like what Cole's been doing. He's got great vision. He's been, he sees the ice real well. That line has got some chemistry. They've been playing well together. So, we'll just keep moving forward, and hopefully he keeps building on what he's been doing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's a lot more to get out of that line. Certainly now that Ehlers finally scored on the season, and Cole Perfetti, regardless of how much he plays, it looks to me, Remo, like he's getting more confident, and we're seeing more of that world-class vision, hockey sense, and passing ability that he's set up teammates for goals in the last 2 games, and I'm sort of with Arnie. You'd like to see them a little bit more. Sometimes the game dictates, and you're matching lines or whatever. That maybe won't be the case. And listen, it's a good problem to have with the other lines going the way they are right now. But like, if anyone's questioning where Cole Perfetti's at right now with the club and thinking that, he's not worthy of playing or anything like that, I think that's far from the truth. He's playing well, getting more comfortable in his role. I think he does seem to be a little bit more comfortable on the wing right now. And Nemetstikov is seemingly a great connector between Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers. But I know there's a lot of fans of Cole. I would just urge people to chill a little bit. He will be playing more. And man, if he keeps doing what he's doing, I think he'll continue to contribute to big wins for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We had those games at the beginning of the season where they didn't get wins and they were playing so well. He said, hey, stick to the process here and it'll come. And I know part of it is Connor Hellebuck, he kept regaining his form, and now Nikolai Ehlers finding it, scoring a goal. We'll see how this team goes, but they're playing pretty well. And hey, you're heading into Montreal against a team that's not expected to make the playoffs, a chance to add to your win total. And for Cole Perfetti, he was playing really well when he was injured last year. He was up there among rookie scoring leaders, and here he is, 4 points in 7 games, and he's contributing. Yeah, I think you probably would like to see that line get more ice time, but I mean, the team won, so it worked. But we'll see how it goes going forward with this ice time distribution, which has been maybe more even than we have seen in years.
Absolutely. And we'll get into this with Ken. I will put down a marker, though. I think that line plays considerably more against Montreal, and I wouldn't at all be surprised if we see their names on the score sheet at some point on Saturday night. Guy we did see on the score sheet was Mason Appleton. Did it for the third time this year. As Remis mentioned, 3 goals and 2 assists now in 7 games. Playing a big role on the Adam Lowry line last night that had a big impact on the game. Here's Arneal on Mason Appleton.
You know what? He's comfortable when he's with Lau. Those guys together are real solid, and they've got a lot of chemistry. We tried moving him up there a little bit earlier, and just felt that his best spot is with when he's with Lau, and then now with Nino. They know how to play without the puck. That goal, that's typical. You love to see that, guys crashing the net and getting the greasy goals, and that was such a big goal at that time of the game. And they were good, and they did what they needed to do to help us win that hockey game.
Scott Arneal on Mason Appleton and the Lowry line, and you can't talk about that win without talking about the performance of the guy in net, Michigan's own Connor Hellebuyck, who I'm sure impressed and frustrated some of his friends and family that are probably regularly Detroit Red Wings. He was certainly one of the stars of the show last night. Here's Arnie on the performance from Hellebuyck.
That was, he's been going here the last few games, and he took charge of that one. I know it's just kind of a hometown game for him, but he was big out there. He looked like he was rock solid and made the stops when we needed them, certainly in that first 10 minutes of the start of the third, and then, he brought it home for us.
All right, so there's Arnie on Hellebuyck, and, Helly now 4-2 on the season, and, after 3 starts with 4 or more goals to begin the year. It's funny how what a week can do early on to flip that narrative and flip the script. Now the goals against average under 3 at 2.99. And after a real rough start save percentage-wise, just about back at 900, 899 for the season, and moving on up after that shaky first week.
Yeah, I mean, you look at save percent. I'm not a big individual save percentage guy, but in the first 3 games it was well under 900, and they were giving up 4 and 5 goals. The last 3 games giving up 2 and 1. His combined stats from the last 3 games has 948 save percentage, and I would have to do the math. He's given up 5 goals, on 96 shots against 91 or 96. So I mean, pretty impressive numbers here in the last 3 for Connor Hellebuyck.
That is he's the guy. Although, and we'll talk about this with Ken coming up in a bit. I would imagine that Laurent Brossoit will be front and center tomorrow against the Habs, and then we'll see Hellebuyck back in at home against the Rangers on Monday night for the Halloween game at Canada Life Center. Let's hear from Nikolai Ehlers. Had a kind of a frustrating start to the season. You could see the relief in his eyes after that beautiful first period goal past James Reimer. Here's Ehlers on the win and getting his first goal of the year.
It's great. Obviously a pretty tough start to the year, but it's not that we didn't like our games and the games that we lost. We did like it, most of it. So we just got to continue playing that way.
You've been getting some chances. What was it like for you to get your first of the year?
Always nice. I hadn't really been close in any games, to be honest. So, it feels good.
So Ehlers gets off the schneid. And you know what, Reeve? It was funny at one point. I'm not sure if you caught this on the tube, but they did catch a moment on the bench after that where there was a big hug between Ehlers and Cole Perfetti, and it seems like they are building more and more chemistry with each other, and that's a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets. I've said it all along. For this team to reach their potential, listen, you want to have Cole Perfetti continue to develop, but Ehlers needs to be that offensive driver on the line, shooting the puck, making the most of his opportunities, and he certainly did that last night. And as we heard from Arnie, I mean, you probably would. Yeah, there it is. Big arm around it. Great to see those guys, 2 very popular members of the Winnipeg Jets with the fans. And, Yeah, there's the bro moment between the two guys afterwards. But, some really good things from that line, despite the fact that, they weren't out there as much as, Scott Arniel said he would have liked to have gotten them out.
Yeah, pretty impressive numbers in terms of controlling shot attempts, as I said before. 11 for, only 4 against. I mean, pretty limited 5-on-5 ice time, 7 minutes and 15 seconds. But, I mean, you've seen Perfetti. I mean, he made so many nice passes in that St. Louis game. And Ehlers, didn't have a preseason. He's kind of finding his legs, and his shots are actually going at the net now. Has not over the glass. Like he had a couple. Sorry to keep pointing that one out. Nick just had a good laugh at those. But hey, this line's got potential. And we talked so much last year how Nemestikov and Ehlers had chemistry last year, and they didn't really start it that way, but it's ended up that way. And I think, big potential if they can get some more minutes for sure.
Well, let's quickly hear from Mason Appleton, and then we'll get into the Bombers before Ken Wiebe joins us from Montreal. Mason Appleton, again, with the third goal, a huge goal and a big part of shutting down the Larkin line. Here's Appleton on the win.
Yeah, they had a hard push. I thought, towards the end of the second, then early in the third, they really jumped on us for a little bit. But, we defended hard and we weathered the storm, and then we got a timely goal. Kind of took the wind out of their sail a bit. But, on the road, 2-1 game, that's what you want going into the third. And, we battled our butts off tonight, and, we earned that win.
The battle was certainly there. So was the goaltending. Here's what Mason Appleton had to say about their goaltender, Connor Hellebuck, last night.
We think he's the best goalie in the league. At the start of the season, we were getting scored on a little bit more than we obviously liked, more than he liked as well. But when you got such an elite goaltender, that it's only a matter of time until he gets his game exactly where he needs it and wants it. So to see him battle like that these past couple of games, it's been huge. He's the backbone of our hockey team, and he's the reason why we're going to be a dang good team this year.
One more for Mason Appleton on the line, along with Adam Lowry, back in his comfort zone on line 3.
I love our line. I love playing with those two guys. I think we're good at holding on to the puck and making just the right simple play, and then when the offense is there and the opportunity presents itself, we can capitalize. So I think that was just a product of, Laus making a great play on the breakout, and then Nino making a great play back to Laus, and then Laus setting on my stick on the back post. So we all know how to read off each other, and we play a pretty simple, efficient game, and it's been working well.
All right, so there's Mason Appleton. Jets win 4-1 in Detroit last night. Ken Wiebe's coming up from the road in a moment. We'll talk a little bit more about last night's game and look ahead to Saturday night against the Montreal Canadiens on Hockey Night in Canada. Just before we head out to Calgary and welcome in Ed Tait. Guys, if you haven't heard, we're putting together a Movember team to raise some money for Men's Health next month. If you are interested in being a part of the WST team and growing a stash for Movember, send us an email at winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. We're just getting it set up. Shout out to everyone that has already pledged that they'll grow the stash. We'll have some fun following your progress throughout the month of November. And, of course, raising some money and doing it along with our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. Might be a great place to go in and get the full shave before you get into the festivities of Movember. 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on either Pembina Highway or Plessis Road, featuring haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Make an appointment at your local Modern Man, and you can book your look. Do it online at modernmanbarber.com. Of course, our friends at Aquatech have had a great summer, helping Winnipeggers take the plunge with pools. But right now, it's time to get working on the homestead. Whole home renovations start with Aquatech, with thousands of renovations as their foundation. Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. Well, the snow is here, and by the looks of it, it's probably sticking around, and that means it's going to get colder, and that means we're going to have to deal with this Winnipeg winter. Preparation is the key, folks, and being prepared for those minus 30 temperatures. You know what you got to do. Your battery's got to be able to get you from point A to point B throughout the winter. if you're unsure about your battery's suitability for the challenge ahead, pop by Manitoba Battery at 1026 Logan Avenue. They'll be happy to test it for you. But if you do need a battery, there's only one place to go. You can shop local, get the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, and get the best service in town because Donnie and Manitoba Battery will deliver your batteries to you anywhere in the city of Winnipeg inside the perimeter for free with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. Get on over to manitobabattery.com. You'll be able to see everything available for you, and give them a phone call at 783-8787. They'll be able to help you that way. Deliver it to you anywhere citywide. And of course, if you do want to pop in for a test or just to see them in person, do that down Manitoba Battery at 1026 Logan Avenue. And hey, next week is the big week for the premium spirit releases at Manitoba Liquor Marts. We can tell you that next Saturday, November 4th, is the date. And that is the day you're going to want to be popping into your Manitoba Liquor Mart to get your hands on the exclusive limited one-time release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. It'll be on sale while supplies last for $79.99 at your local Manitoba Liquor Mart. Again, the limited one-time release of the Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. And Canadian Club, proud sponsors of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the official spirit of the blue and gold. And there'll be plenty of CC and ginger flowing for that West Final coming up on November 11th. You can pick up Canadian Club at your local Manitoba Liquor Marts, CC and ginger at your local beer store. And remember, always, please enjoy responsibly. All right, let's welcome in Eddie Tait from Calgary before the Bombers finish up the regular season and get ready for the West Final. Edward, what's going on? How are you?
I'm great, Huss. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great. Looking good. Sounding like $1 million US tax-free. And yeah, you know what? Listen, things are good. The hockey team's playing well. And obviously, we're now just counting down to November 11th. But there's still a game left to be played. Fill us in. What was the vibe like around practice this week, knowing that this is a very different challenge than the teams had all year, looking to get to the ultimate goal of hosting the West Final in IG Field?
I got to tell you, it was a bit of a weird vibe around practice because, first of all, you're watching a bunch of guys that you haven't seen a whole lot of getting work with the number ones and twos because the lineup looks so much different for tonight. And then, I think some guys wanted to play. Some guys were okay with taking a week off. But it's weird. I got on the plane yesterday and I'm looking around, and honestly, Huss, I'm around this team all the time. There's a few faces I said, I had to go, who's that guy again? Who's that guy again? Who's that sitting with Stanley? Who's that sitting? Like, it's wild because there's 10 starters out of the lineup tonight. It's really a different roster for this late in the year.
Well, you know what, Matt, why don't we just quickly go down the list of the guys that either didn't make the trip or are not expected to play?
Well, so there's 10 starters out. So I'm looking at the list here. Jackson Jeffcoat, Willie Jefferson, and Ricky Walker on the D-line, Adam Bighill, and Kyrie Wilson at linebacker, Reddick Cramdy, the dimeback, Winston Rose is out, Brandon Alexander is out, Nick Dembski is out, Stanley Bryant is out. That might be 10. So it's crazy. It's and what's interesting is that this is a veteran team. We're getting on the plane yesterday, and I'm walking up the ramp. It's outside with Celestin Haba behind me, and he's just wearing this white satin Toronto Blue Jays jacket with a Blue Jays hat on. I don't know if he's a big Blue Jays fan or not, but he says to me, "Man, it's cold." And I felt like saying, just suit up, buddy. You don't have a clue yet what it's going to be like. It's going to be a shocker for some of these guys tonight because it's cold here too in Calgary.
Well, we had Button on. I was texting you yesterday. We had Button on Tuesday or Wednesday, and he had said that they were in the midst of getting 25 centimeters of snow. I was there, I guess, the week before or 2 weeks ago, and it certainly was cooler than it was in Winnipeg. But what's it like there today as we get closer to kickoff?
I think I haven't been out yet. It's -5 with a wind chill like -10 or something. And I think it's going to well, it's not going to get any warmer by kickoff. Let's put it that way. So it's icy. It's kind of that what we've got in Winnipeg. When it first comes, it's kind of here to stay. That's how it kind of feels here right now. It's a bit of a shock to the system, even for someone like me who grew up in Winnipeg. So these guys, I know some guys are already shivering thinking about tonight's game.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure some of their teammates can fill them in on what the West Final was like against the Riders a couple of years back.
Exactly.
You got to get ready for that and what is to come on the 11th of November. So with all of those players out, some less experienced players are going to be getting some chances to get into the game reps, and certainly that's big. But at the top of the list coming back on is DeMario Houston, one of the more regular players that we hadn't seen in a couple of weeks, is he'd been nicked up.
Yeah, it's good to get him back because, he had practiced for the last couple of weeks. I think they just kept him out of the Edmonton game to be safe, but he needs to get some game action in before the West Final. I mean, you can pretty much pencil him in at one of the corner spots. What's going to be interesting now is that, Winston Rose has been steady, but Jamal Parker's played really well in the last little while. And I know they're very intrigued with Tyreek McGee, who's coming onto the roster. This will be his first CFL game tonight. He kind of popped out a little bit at the beginning of rookie camp and then got hurt. So he's a guy that was on the Los Angeles Rams practice roster for a year, and he played at Georgia. So if you get a scholarship to Georgia, you're a pretty good player. So there's another guy that they want to keep an eye on. But you're right, getting Houston's going to be important because, whether it's BC or Calgary that they're going to play in the West Final, both those teams have got some pretty good receivers they're going to have to cover.
Ed, just reading in your game preview over at bluebombers.com, you mentioned all the players that are out that are going to the one-game injured list. And, when I got back from Edmonton on Sunday, I bumped into Kyle Walters and just had a quick chat with him, congratulated him on, wrapping up the West and looking forward to the game on the 11th. And then I asked him about this week and just how things were progressing. I mean, what he has to do. And the one thing that he mentioned to me that, I'll be honest, I didn't really think of was that in a situation like this, when you're putting guys on the one-game list, you're activating other guys, there is an effect on the salary cap. Can you just give us a little bit of an idea about what management was working with behind these decisions, what they could do or what they would like to do, and if the cap at all prevented anything?
Well, it's a real good point, Huss. So essentially, with those 10 guys, starters being moved to the one-game injured list, you're activating 10 guys. So basically, you're adding 10 more salaries to your salary cap for this game. So there are pretty significant salary cap implications. Now, the one thing I had told to me, which is very interesting, I hadn't remembered this, but a player that ends the year on the practice roster automatically becomes a free agent at the end of the season. So he doesn't even have to get to February. He's a free agent like at the end of November. But by activating some of these guys that they want to take a look at, I mentioned Tyreek McGee. There's a receiver, Ravi Alston, that's going to start. Because they're going to be active on the final regular season game of the year, the Bombers retain their rights. So that's massive for this club in terms of evaluation and who you might want to bring back for next year. So there's some guys that'll be playing tonight that still might get released at the end of the season, but there's a bunch of guys that, you've invested this much time in them, whether it's all season or a guy like Alston that came in September in the practice roster expansion, and you'd like to get a look at them even more than just in practice and in one game. So that's the other factor I think that came into play here with this much roster turnover for tonight's game.
Now, again, to the fans, probably the coaches and management, I mean, the number one thing that you want to get out of this game is out of it healthy and nobody getting nicked up and hurt. And that's a big reason why so many of the most important starters won't even see the field. Zach Collaros will be dressing as the third quarterback behind Drew Brown and Dakota Prukop. However, for Brown in particular, in the situation that he is, with the limited opportunity he's been able to play and play quite well, I would imagine that on a personal level for his future, this is another glorious opportunity to show, unfortunately for Bomber fans, maybe the rest of the league, that he might be able to come out of the shadow of Zach Collaros and be a starter at some point in the league.
It's absolutely massive for a guy like that, Huss. He's at that point now where he's beyond just being a prospect, right? I think he's shown enough flashes. He's got a really good quarterback rating. He hasn't thrown an interception this year. He's led the Bombers to a win. He led the Bombers to the comeback win when he came off the bench in Edmonton. He's got really good numbers, and he deserves more playing time. It's probably not going to come in Winnipeg because Zach Collaros is the starter here through 2025. So it's kind of an audition for him for around this league and maybe the other league, whatever it's going to be called, the XFL, USFL, UFL. I've heard today they're United Football League. So he deserves to play. He deserves a chance to play. I'm not sure where it might happen in the CFL because it's interesting, right? As bad as some of these teams have been, is he got a better opportunity in Ottawa with Dustin Crum there? Maybe not Jeremiah Mazzoli back. What's going on at Hamilton with Bo Levi Mitchell being, probably in his last year. And then, there's a lot of Vernon Adams isn't going anywhere. Trey Ford isn't going anywhere. Jake Mayer here in Calgary. Saskatchewan's a bit of a mystery, but Trevor Harris would probably come back. So, where else could he go in this league? That's going to be interesting to see if he sees a chance somewhere else or if he can stay. In any case, he wants to get out there and help lead this team to a win, but also put some more good snaps on tape for everybody to see.
Yeah, Alex Howe in chat says, unfortunately for Drew, there aren't a lot of starting spots opening up in the CFL, I don't think. And hey, listen, that might be good news for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers because he's been a heck of a part of that quarterback room for the last few years. And we all know that number 8 is going to be out there for the playoff game. Eddie, we got a question from Dan Milburn, who said they put Les Morrow on the practice roster. Was that because they brought another international player off of it?
No, Les Morrow's been on the practice roster for a couple of games, and partly it's because Deadrick Hansen came back, and so he's their global. You got the global kicker in Jamison Sheehan, and even Suleiman Karamoko, a defensive back who's a global, is on the roster tonight. Les has been an excellent special teams player, but I think that they like what Deadrick Hansen offers in a rotation at the defensive end spot, and then Karamoko they just want to take another look at too. He's a kid from France, but played his college ball at Laval and has just been around here for a while. He usually gets like the one game a year in this sort of situation with Winnipeg, but I don't know what this means for Les beyond in the West Final, whether he might dress or whether he's going to be stuck on the practice roster again.
We talked about the guys that are out and kind of talked about a couple of the guys coming in, like Demario Houston. Any other player or two that Bomber fans might be interested to know maybe a little something about that we haven't seen before that, will kind of get significant playing time for the first time tonight?
Yeah, I mentioned Ravi Alston. So this is a guy that I'm really intrigued by. I know a few weeks ago when the club released Carlton Agadosi, people were saying, what's going on? Why you released that guy? He had those moments. This is part of the reason why Carlton Agadosi got released, is Ravi Alston has caught everything since he's been arrived in September. And I mean, I don't think I've seen him drop a pass. He's been phenomenal. And he's a guy that played at, I don't know how many times you've driven down to Minnesota, Huss. I know I've done a lot. There's that one little dip as you get on your way to Minneapolis, and there's St. John's University. It's a Division III school. It's up on a hill. It's probably like 2 buildings and a football field. That's where he started his college career, and then he went from there to Montana State, and had a real good career there too. So I don't know how they found this guy. I think it was through an agent. He didn't go to a free agent camp, so he's a guy that I'm really excited to take a look at. Drew Richmond's another one. He'll play left tackle tonight, where Stanley Bryant usually is. This is a guy that's been around for a while. I don't know if you remember, there was that game in Montreal in 2021. He started for Stanley, and it was another one of these games that didn't mean anything. He took 7 snaps and then absolutely destroyed his knee. Like every ligament, every little thing inside of it blew up. And he, rehabbed all of last year, all of this year. And so here's another guy. He played at Tennessee and USC. So those are little schools, right? And sometime down the road, this club's going to have to make a decision about Stanley and Jamarcus. They're not getting any younger. Nobody is, but you've got to have some import tackles in-house to take a look at. And Drew's a guy that they've kept around for a while.
How's Coach been this week? I'm sure he can't wait to get to the bye week and get preparing for either BC or Calgary right now. Anything different from Mike O'Shea this week in this unique situation of a game that really is meaningless and you just want to get out unscathed?
Yeah, it's funny. I would say business as usual with Coach O'Shea, which wouldn't surprise anybody, but you really do get the sense, and this sounds awful, but they just want to get through this one. They just, like you said a few minutes ago, Huss, just nobody get hurt. Just let's get through this one, evaluate these guys. It's like a preseason game in late October. It's really bizarre, to be honest. And I know the Bombers have been in this situation before, but I don't remember this many lineup changes. So, I think Coach O'Shea, like every coach, should be excited to take a look at some of these guys, the guys we just rattle off some of their names. But I think everybody is just thinking, let's fast forward to next week, watch the West semifinal, and get to November 11th.
Well, the Bombers at least will be sitting on the couch next week watching the West Semi. Calgary won't. And because of the Riders running the table with 7 straight losses, Calgary doesn't even need this game. They incredibly are already in the playoffs. It's a very similar situation, I'd imagine, for Calgary, except the fact that they're on the road next week in BC. We know anything about how Calgary's kind of going into this game, Ed?
Yeah, they've rested a bunch of guys too, Huss. They're still the depth chart. I'm looking at it right now is Jake Mayer to start, but Brandon Dozier, Cameron Judge, Kadeem Carey, Reggie Begelton, all out for tonight. And then I'm sure that they're treating it the same way. I mean, you're right. The Bombers will be on a couch watching next week, but these guys got to play. So it's weird because you might play Winnipeg. If they beat BC, this might be the West Final preview, right? But so do you show stuff? Do you want to finish with momentum? Does that matter at all to Calgary? Like you say, they've already got things locked up. They've just beat the snot out of BC a couple of weeks ago. I think they know how they want to play. So, again, they're resting a bunch of people tonight, but I imagine what they do would be pretty vanilla too, because they're not going to bring out any trick plays or any new looks because they're going to be saving them for BC next week and then maybe Winnipeg on November 11th.
Ed Tait of BlueBombers.com with us, getting ready for the regular season finale between the Blue Bombers and the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary will be in BC next week to see who will earn the right to spend November 11th in Winnipeg fighting the Bombers for a spot in the Grey Cup. Eddie, the biggest conversation around the Bombers this week was the player awards. You've covered this team for a long time. I just wanted to get your thoughts on, the battle between Zach Collaros and Brady Oliveira for the MOP nomination that ended up going to the running back who we expect will get 20 yards tonight to get 2,000 combined and then join the rest of the crew on the bench.
Yeah, I don't have a vote anymore. I used to have a vote, and it would have been tough for me too. There's no wrong answer between Zach and Brady, and this is no slight to Brady. I probably would have leaned to picking Zach just because he's a quarterback. And I know Brady's been more consistent. Brady's had an amazing year. So is Zach. And people say, well, he threw some pick sixes. And, well, every quarterback makes mistakes, man. And, Brady put the ball on the ground sometimes too. So I just don't think there was a wrong answer here. It's pretty remarkable. I think even Brady was surprised when he found out that he was a double winner because he's also the most outstanding Canadian. Again, no wrong pick. I'm happy, really happy for Brady. He's such a classy dude, and he does so much for this town. Such a proud Winnipegger. It's kind of cool to see him be a double nominee. What's interesting now is who's going to come out of the West and as a Canadian and the most outstanding player. And maybe Brady wins both of those again. I'm not sure. He's in tough with a couple of people, but and then Toronto's going to get a lot of love at the league, at the national level when we come down to picking between the two finalists, right? I think that they're going to be pretty busy on awards night just because I think there is a lot of voter fatigue with Winnipeg because the Blue Bombers have been up on that stage at the awards night so often over the last few years.
I think there's something to be said about potentially a bit of voter fatigue here in Winnipeg for the people that have been voting for Zach Collaros the last few years.
Well, and it's not just that one, Huss. How about at the most outstanding offensive line one? I think if you ask our coaches, they'll tell you that, and this, again, I don't like to point fingers at anybody else, but if you ask our coaches, they'll tell you that the two best linemen this year have been Stanley Bryant still, because even Stanley at 80% of what he once was a few years ago is better than most in the league. And Patty Neufeld's had a great year too, but I've heard Jamarcus' name coming up an awful lot, as well as Chris Kolinkowski. So that leaves Jeff Gray too. So that's the voter fatigue you're talking about too. I think people get tired of scratching Stanley Bryant's name on that ballot too.
And again, I mean, I think you nailed it. I mean, there's not really any wrong answer. And
Right.
the great thing about this football club is I don't really think any of these guys care when it comes down to it. I mean, all the individual awards, they're happy for their teammates if they get them. But this does really seem like a team that has one collective goal, and that's to win 2 more football games beginning on November 11th here at home.
No, you're bang on, Huss. Like you said earlier, I've covered this team for a long time, and I know that the awards was a big thing with a lot of players in some years, right? Guys would be angry, the guys would be in a sour mood, and they'd be, who did you vote for? Did you vote for me? And it's like really putting a guy on the spot, right? But this team is a mature team. They've been there before, and I think so many of these guys are still stuck in their craw a little bit about what happened last year in Regina in the Grey Cup. And as we get closer now to this year's Grey Cup, I think some of those memories kind of bubble to the surface again, and it's all about focus now. And all this stuff is fun, it's nice, looks good on the resume, but they're not in it for that. And as cliche as that sounds, they're really not in it for that. They're like you said, proud for their teammates, but it's all about winning 2 more games.
Ed, just before we go, the team will come back after the game. Do we know what the schedule is like for the bye week for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers? I mean, this is not a normal bye week. I mean, they'll already be in preparation mode for the biggest game of the season. I
think I do have it somewhere, Huss. I think they're off until like next Wednesday or Thursday. And if I remember what happened last year, the team practiced on the weekend, and there was like a practice on the Sunday of the West semifinal in the morning. And then the guys I think a bunch of food was ordered in, and everybody hung out and watched the West semifinal in the locker room. So I imagine that'll be the similar situation coming up here. So a few days off after this, which is understandable, and then right back to the grind. Coaches will be in. We play tonight. Coaches will be in there tomorrow morning right away. They don't get any time off.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, let's just hope that Alcantara isn't too busy after this game.
Good point.
That's the bottom line. Give Al a nice weekend off, guys. And hey, listen, win or lose tonight, we know what the story is. 5:30 p.m., November 11th. Tickets going very quickly for that game. It's going to be another amazing atmosphere. And Bombers looking to do it again, getting back to the Grey Cup. We'll find out who they play next week. But first things first, finish off the regular season and move on to the playoffs. Ed, have a great time out there. Travel safely, and we'll talk to you soon. Always appreciate you jumping on with us at Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Thanks for having me on, Huss.
Good stuff. There is Eddie Tait. Great to have Ed with us. And again, we'll just cross our fingers that the squad gets through unscathed tonight. Everybody healthy, win or lose. And then get down to business later on next week preparing for that West final. Let me give you a big shout out to our friends over at Vita Health Fresh Market. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, get on down to one of 6 Vita Health Fresh Market stores or online at myvita.ca. The website is fully shoppable, so you can order online with same-day local delivery if you get that order in by 11 a.m. And hey, listen, I know the winter's here, the holidays is just around the corner, school's back in. It can be a stressful time. You might want to try Health First Ashwagandha Supreme, known for its stress-lowering effects, effective for reducing mental stress, anxiety, cortisol levels, and even stress-related food cravings. And it's on sale all month at Vita Health. Vita Health Fresh Market, proudly local, family-owned and operated since 1936, with Winnipeg's largest assortment of local products, too. Empowering people to lead healthy lives. Visit them at one of 6 Vita Health locations and online at myvita.ca. And you know what? I've got to give a shout-out to one of our listeners. I was mentioning that, Wallace & Wallace are the fencing experts in town. We've always seen their trucks and fences all around the city. What people might not know is that Wallace & Wallace are the experts in overhead garage doors. And I got to give a shout out to Dustin Wireless, who fired us a tweet about an hour ago. I got the Wallace & Wallace crew over checking out the garage door. Well done. Love to see you guys supporting our sponsors. And hey, I mean, they'll tell you that overhead garage door had lots of ups and downs this summer, but it's about to work a whole lot harder this winter because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. And just like Dustin's doing, the right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today. For residential and commercial overhead door sales and service, there's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, shout out to our friends over at F Apparel. We mentioned that holiday season, which, believe it or not, isn't too far around the corner. Guys, if you need to step up your menswear game when you're looking in your closet, head on down to F Apparel and get suited up. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. 15% discount for wedding parties as well. So if you're getting married or in a wedding party, talk to the gang at F about making the fellas look great in suits that you'll have long beyond the big day at a 15% discount at F Apparel. You can see them at 190 Smith Street downtown, or make an appointment and find out more online at that's EPHapparel.com. And we're going to get into some Jets talk with Kenny right now from Montreal after the big win last night. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Hockey Night in Canada, Jets and Habs, and then back to welcome in the New York Rangers for their lone visit of the year. Longtime Winnipeg Jet captain Blake Wheeler in the lineup. Former Winnipeg Jet, now captain of the Blue Shirts, Jacob Trouba. And it'll be a special game, too, because, of course, it's the day before Halloween. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fun Halloween-themed entertainment in and around the game. So get your costume ready, get your tickets, and get ready to welcome Wheeler and the Rangers into town Monday, October 30th. Tickets and more information available at winnipegjets.com. Speaking of the Winnipeg Jets, let's talk to our main man, Kenny Wiebe, who is on the road with the club, coming out of that big 4-1 win last night in Motown. Weber, what's good?
Andrew, great to be with you. I was trying to get you the nice backdrop of the city of Montreal, but it just wasn't agreeing with the lighting here in the room at the hotel here at the Grand Sheraton. So going to have to go with the nice artwork over my shoulder here. So no, all is well. Smooth travel. Wasn't a crazy crack of dawn day, and Jets had a mostly impressive performance against the upstart Red Wings, and we'll see what Saturday brings. Just filed a piece on the battling Barron brothers, ready for their second NHL tilt against one another in front of mom and dad and family and friends. So should be a fun spectacle for the Barron family.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, listen, we'll get to Montreal in a minute and kind of look ahead to tomorrow night's game, but let's go back to last night. Right off the hop, Ken, I got to say, I was out with a bunch of buddies watching the game. We, like always, were kind of, glued to it. Big sound where we were watching the game. And, I mean, that seemed like a really fun game to watch. And ironically, it's the first game I've watched on TV this year because I was at the two other road games. But, man, was it back and forth. And in the second period particularly, it seemed like both teams took turns with long, sustained periods of play in the offensive zone, generating chances, and both goalies had to be good to prevent far more red lights going on last night.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Huss. Great vibe. It's nice to see the Red Wings back as a fun and exciting team. There's some skill on that team. There's some depth, and there's a good vibe in the arena again, Huss, at Little Caesars, which is one of the best arenas in the National Hockey League when it's rocking, especially. I really enjoyed it. I think that there were definitely times when both Scott Arniel and Derek Lalonde may not have been enjoying it as much as I was, or as much as the players were. A little bit more back and forth, frantic action at times there, some sustained pressure, as you mentioned. But for the most part, the Jets handled the primary chances. I didn't think there were a lot of second chance opportunities that were provided for the Red Wings. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck had a lot to do with that, including those 19 saves in the third period. I thought he was exceptional once again. But overall, structurally, there were certainly times where the Jets, I thought, were doing a pretty good job against a highly skilled team. We know, similar to the Edmonton Oilers power play, Huss, I mean, Detroit was rocking a 41.4 percentile efficiency rate going into the year, which somehow was only good for second in the National Hockey League. Jets made sure they were 2 for 2 against that. And obviously the more important thing was the discipline, only giving them the 2 opportunities in the game. But once again, 4 lines rolling mostly, and, on contributions throughout. And you're right. I mean, James Reimer had to make a couple. I mean, I still think the one on Scheifele is accidental would be maybe a stretch, but that sequence where Vladislav Nemesnikov went wide, found Kyle Connor, the shot was blocked and ended up on Scheifele's stick. Reimer was kind of spinning in the crease, and the 5-hole was open, and in sort of desperation, he just kind of got the pads together at the very last second to prevent a goal there. But yeah, I mean, Kyle Connor, another beauty goal, up to 5 on the season. Another impressive performance overall by the team.
Hey,
and
how about the goal that Kyle Connor didn't score? I mean,
Well,
Remis and I were
I-
talking about that play. That pass by Scheifele was, I mean, that was world-class stuff.
For sure, and an exceptional play on a number of fronts, and also because of who he's going up against on that play. Moritz Seider, one of the best young defensemen in the league, and he's got such a great long reach. And Scheifele takes him wide, and everyone in the building, including Seider, including James Reimer, including myself, think he's going to come out the far side and try to find the late guy coming a trailer in the slot, and then he doesn't backhand pass it. He goes across the grain on the forehand and leaves the puck in just an exceptional spot. Now, Huss, that was a tougher. Everyone's thinking, oh, that's just an easy tap in for Kyle Connor. It's not. Where the puck is situated between his feet and tight to his body, I don't think that Kyle Connor wasn't expecting the pass, but it was in an area that makes it very tough for him to get a lot of, like some people saying he fanned on it or whatever else. It's not a true fan based on where the pass was. And no, it is an exceptional pass. It just wasn't. Kyle Connor was a little bit too low to be able to do more with it than what it looked like on TV. Again, it's an exceptional play by Scheifele, but like this isn't, Reimer. That to me is the most accidental save of the game. I think, it just kind of hit him in the leg because Kyle couldn't get a lot of wood on it. But to me, that's not it's not an inability for Connor to bury a great play. It was in a spot that made it tough to bear down. Of course, Kyle's an exceptional sniper. He'd want to have that back, but to me, that's not a obvious missed opportunity. Just because it was kind of put in a place where it was difficult for him to really do much more with it. But having said that, I mean, Kyle's got exceptional hands, and he would like to bury every chance that he's got. And Huss, the crazy part about Kyle, like 44 game winners. I mean, it's an absurdly high number. For a guy who, people criticizing all they want. I mean, is he, about his defensive zone play? I mean, he's not a great defensive player. We know that, but like this guy's one of the purest snipers in the National Hockey League. Very few players have scored more than him since he entered the league as a full-time player, and he'll continue to put up points. And we talked about this going into the year, Huss. Outside of Mark Scheifele and Josh Morrissey and Connor Hellebuck, Kyle Connor's ability to get back to being a 40-plus goal scorer and 90-plus point player was going to be a big reason that the Jets could maybe build on what they did last year and be more than just a wild card team.
No doubt about it. And that line has been awesome, and they continue to generate, without Gabriel Velarde, who seemed like he was such a big part of the chemistry they brought on early, and I think IFL has done really, really well. But Mason Appleton is sort of back home where he belongs. You can discuss, the decision to give him an opportunity up in that Vegas game and early in Edmonton with Scheifele and Connor. They quickly made that move after a rough start in Edmonton. And since Appleton has been back with Lowry playing with Nito Niederreiter, it seems like, that line, listen, they haven't lost a beat with Iafallo off, and he was such a big part of it to begin. And Appleton is quietly sort of getting on the scoreboard as well. What a play between all three of the members of that line on Appleton's goal, which was a huge one. Detroit was really pressing at the time. Jets holding on a 1-goal lead, and then next thing you know, it's behind James Reimer and a much more comfortable lead. Although people say it's the worst league in hockey.
Well, Huss, at the time, it certainly wasn't the worst lead in hockey because most people in the building thought the game was going to be tied based on how the Red Wings were pouring it on in the third period. The Jets were able to get that goal, and just a brilliant play all around, as you mentioned. I thought in real time, Huss, I know you had a chance to watch it on TV, and I know obviously they didn't challenge because it was too close, or it was actually, they did a great job of, holding the leg or stretching on the entry. But in real time, I thought there was a chance that might have been offside on the entry, but it obviously wasn't. Exceptional play by all parties, as you mentioned. Adam Lowry with a great pass and just a great job by Appleton. That is the epitome of a net drive. He almost ended up crashing himself into the back of the net on the play itself. But yeah, that line was excellent. Nino Niederreiter getting the empty netter. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers had that great quote about his own experience where he went maybe 10 games without and got one in San Jose, and it just started to get on a roll. And it's interesting, Huss, because I thought Nino Niederreiter is a guy who had tons of chances early, and then after being a little bit snake bitten, it kind of hadn't been as dangerous offensively the last couple of games. But his play along the boards and his ability to battle and win those battles, it's very interesting to see how his game has risen once again here. I really thought that was one of his best games of the year, and he got that reward with the empty netter. And that line, Huss, that the assignment was exceptional. They did a great job against Dylan Larkin. Like that is a high-end line they were up against. Alex DeBrincat doing a great job. Lucas Raymond obviously getting to the net with that backhand goal. But they winning that battle is tough to do, and that line was excellent once again, as well, as you mentioned.
Well, you mentioned Nikolai Ehlers, and he got off the schneid. I mean, obviously you could see the relief. I mean, a huge goal to get the team up on the road the way that he did. And we showed a little earlier. I mean, a good moment with him putting his arm around Perfetti, being thankful for the dish. I thought Perfetti's been quite good over the last little bit. That line, and Arneal said as much. I mean, they really like the way they've been playing. And yet they didn't see the ice as much. And I'll be honest, I was sort of surprising to me when I saw the game sheet afterwards and just looked at the numbers. What do you make of just the way that they've been used? And Scott Arneal saying as much afterwards that, he's got to get those guys out on the ice a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's causing lots of consternation, Huss. I think that Cole Perfetti is playing well for sure. Do I think that their play warrants 20 minutes a night yet? No, I personally don't think that they're ready for that. And it's more about what other guys are doing than what they're not doing. Obviously, some of the games, we talked about this before, that there have been high-paced games where, and Cole had she had Sean on. He had a bad turnover in one of the games. That doesn't mean you're going to be benched or you're not going to play a lot for the rest of the year. There are growing pains that come along with being a young player, and he's going through those things right now. I think that he is playing well. I thought that his pass to Nikolai Ehlers was another classic example of his brilliant vision, which has been on display a lot. Since the move to the wing, Huss. A goal and 3 points in 4 games. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. He's getting the job done. He's taking the move in stride. And I think there's a lot of good with what he's been doing. I like the fact that he looked for his shot a little bit more often yesterday. I think that the chemistry is coming along. Perfetti and Ehlers are starting to kind of get on that same wavelength, if you will, in terms of them knowing where one another are on the ice. And Vladislav Nemestikov obviously has a role to play in that. I don't think that their minutes are going to stay at the level that they're at, Huss. I think they're going to be on the rise for sure. And the fact that, I loved Scott Arneal's honesty in saying that he needs to get them out more. He knows that. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers just played his best game of the year. I'm not saying that Cole Perfetti was being hurt by Nikolai Ehlers' slow start and his frustration with missing training camp and all that. But I mean, the facts are that line wasn't clicking on all cylinders in the early going. Now I'm seeing signs that they are clicking. And since that's been happening, I do expect them to play more. Do I think it's a massive oversight by the coaching staff that they haven't been playing a ton? I think this is more about what the fourth line has. It's not a traditional fourth line. I think on a lot of teams that wouldn't be a fourth line. The fact that they're playing more and being given more responsibility when protecting leads, I think says more about their ability and their strengths than it does about any deficiencies about the Nemesnikov line. To me, that's how I'm viewing it. Having said that, I mean, of course, you would like those guys to play more, and I do expect them to play more as well.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, if they were down 3-1, I think you'd probably see, the game dictate that maybe they lean a little bit more on offensive players as opposed to, as Arnie said yesterday, trying to shut it down. I'm glad you brought up the fourth line, though, because I think that is sort of something that a lot of people, don't maybe think about when you're just kind of pegging in ice time.
Right.
This Jets team is as balanced and deep as we've seen probably since 2017-18. And the performance of that fourth line, shift after shift after shift, Ken, I think is giving, whether it's Bones or Arnie calling the shots, immense confidence to roll all those four lines. And then, in a game like that last night, they're throwing Lowry out there against the Dylan Larkin line for that obvious assignment. And when Scheifele and Connor are going the way they are, you want to get those guys out as well. And that sort of all conspired to it. I certainly would expect that when we look at the game sheet after this game in Montreal tomorrow, that those numbers look a little different for Ehlers, Nemesnikov, and Perfetti.
Yeah, and no doubt. And as you mentioned, I mean, like Derek Lalonde was really leaning into that Larkin line. So I think that almost caused Arniel to double shift the Lowry line as well, which sort of meant that there were a couple of turns skipped for the Perfetti group for sure. And I mean, Cole's a very smart and, conscientious player for sure. But like, let's not kid ourselves. That's probably not the line that you're throwing out to protect a lead on a lot of nights. But, Nemesnikov is a very sound defensive player. And now I think that now with Ehlers playing with confidence, you can put those guys over the boards in that scenario a little bit more often. And I do think that their ice time is just going to go up. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers played his best game of the year, Huss. He had been very frustrated when I asked him if he thought it was just kind of a matter of time. He basically said, I haven't been close, which, and you were at the game where he had the high flip over the net, like on the doorstep against LA, and somehow put it into the netting.
I mean, field goal.
I was going to say that was something that you don't expect, right? So confidence is a valuable thing, and of course Cole wants to play more and all of those things, and he will play more. He's going to earn that ice time. He's playing great. He's handled this incredibly well. He's not banging on the GM's door saying, "I need to play more. I'm out of here." Let's just all take a deep breath. The ice time will be on the rise, and Cole will continue to be a valuable player. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't played a full season in the National Hockey League. I was talking about this with Nate Schmidt the other day, and Nate was laughing. He goes, "I was still in college when I was Cole Perfetti's age." So the fact that he's not playing 20 minutes a game, just soak it in, let the kid. He's learning. And he's getting a great opportunity, and he will continue to see his role on the Jets grow. And he's going to be one of the cornerstone players of this franchise, provided he stays healthy. And that's an important thing for Cole Perfetti moving forward. But back to the fourth line, Huss, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, David Gustafsson scoring the other night. Huss, he had one of the best chances he's had at 2-0. He had an incredible chance in the slot. He just slid the shot wide. I thought he had James Reimer beaten, and he did, but he didn't bury it. They go back the other way. Raymond scores. But there too, that fourth line didn't get frustrated by that. They were able to continue to work hard and do a nice job defensively and getting some offensive zone time on their shifts. We've said this a lot. They're not treading water, Huss. This fourth line is playing well. They've been able to generate opportunities, zone time, and they got a goal the other night. Barron is up to 2 already. Kapari's been buzzing around. And Huss, the other part of the equation, for all the people that were on Mark Scheifele has shown in these first 7 games that he is dedicated to being a better 200-foot player. I thought he broke up at least 2 potential goal-scoring opportunities in the first period against the Red Wings. And, people made all the jokes that they want about empty net points for him and Blake Wheeler. Right now, Mark Scheifele deserves to be on the ice late in games. He's been excellent in the circle, and he's making smart plays. He's not flying the zone and cheating to get cookie offense. He's doing a nice job on all of those areas that he needed to, And that's another reason why that line is out there later in games.
Well, and listen, I mean, I said it a million times. It used to drive me nuts back in the Maurice era where it seemed like, Maurice was doing that just to placate his star players and give them opportunities to pad the stats. I agree with you right now. But here's the thing. In these moments as well, it's not like they're just putting those guys out. Like, they're doing it, but we've seen a lot of the third line, and we've seen the fourth line too. And this goes back to Edmonton on Saturday night, in a tie game late, going up against the likes of McDavid and Draisaitl. We're seeing Kapari and Barron and Gustafsson, and all those things are real positive moves for the Winnipeg Jets. Ken, just before we talk about Montreal, just thoughts on what you saw from the blue line at Little Caesars last night.
Yeah, it's interesting, Huss. I know you talked about this with Craig Button. I was catching up on some episodes on the flight today, and I would say the Jets' defense core has been, pretty steady. Room for improvement, though, I think, for me. And I don't just mean the defense core as a whole. I know you asked me specifically about them, but I think their team defense, it's still a work in progress, which is natural for the first, 10 to 20 games of the year for any team, because they had a long way to go. Even though they made some strides last year, obviously in the first half of the year, I think it's more going to be a cumulative effect that takes throughout the course of the year. I do think that the defending element is steady and it's getting better. I think the high dangers were 12-11 yesterday, including all situations, and 8-7 at 5-on-5. So I think they're doing a pretty good job. I think they need to be a little bit more efficient in terms of their zone exits and their breakouts and things of that nature. I would say, could Declan Chisholm be part of that solution until Ville Heinola is ready? I'm not sure. My curiosity, Huss, would tell me that I would like to see him in a game. Having said that, I don't know that I'm not expecting that to happen on Saturday night against the Montreal Canadiens, but I would say that that's one element where I think they need to be a little bit more efficient. I know we've talked a lot about Neil Pionk. I'm seeing a lot of good signs from Neil, but I still don't think he's back to the level he was at those first two seasons with the Jets. Now, people can cite analytics or some of the other numbers, but I do think he's healthier and he's playing with a little bit more of that snarl and edge. For the most part, I still see room for improvement. I don't see a group that is deficient, but I do see a group that probably, if they want to get to where they want to get to, they're going to have to elevate their game over the course of the year, which is what all teams are trying to do. But I see a lot of good from Josh Morrissey in his pairing with Dylan DeMello. And then I see, Dylan Sandberg is making some strides, and you're seeing, I think that Neil Pionk has played a solid game when Brendan Dillon's been back with him. And, Nate's responded since the healthy scratch. I mean, I still think that he's finding his legs after the injury on, basically day 2 of training camp. But, it's a work in progress, Huss, but I do see some signs that they're trending towards a direction which would be, equated to improvement.
Ken, in the past with this hockey club over the years, we've seen an inability to really get on extended winning streaks, and you'll win or 2, sometimes 3. And this is a game that I will admit, from a fan perspective, makes me a little nervous. A team that, a game that the Jets will be favored in. This is a game that sometimes we haven't seen their best out of it. That being said, I think we're seeing a lot of trends right now that would give you confidence that this team can replicate these performances, against a team like Montreal. What do you make of their challenge tomorrow to go in and continue this streak and come back to Winnipeg on a 4-game heater?
Yeah, Huss, what I would say is I know where you're coming from. I don't see the Jets getting fat on their press clippings, having won 3 in a row. I know that that's kind of the road you were sort of leaning on here. That's not to say that there's not the ability to have a potential letdown during the schedule, but it's funny. I would say that most fans or pundits would have looked at this part of the schedule going into the year and saying it's maybe a softer part of the schedule. Yet the Red Wings were off to a 5-1-1 start, and the Canadians are, unexpectedly playing better than we were expecting them to as well. So, there's always teams that sort of jump out to great starts. I mean, we saw it last year with Buffalo, scoring at a ridiculous rate. They still missed the playoffs. Detroit was in a playoff spot for a long time. They missed. So it's interesting too, because Huss, this, the Jets have played Montreal late in seasons a lot when they were kind of down and out in Beverly Hills, and they've still given the Jets trouble at various points and time because of the speed game that they play. But I would say that with the changes to the forward group, I think the Jets are much better equipped to handle that speed that Montreal can play with under Marty St. Louis. What I will say is that they're going to have to be sharp because the buy-in is there with the Montreal Canadiens as well. So this isn't just a open space on the bingo card special on a Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada. What I will say is that I expect the Jets to be ready. And Huss, I say that because of the early struggles in terms of the standings. I mean, Mason Appleton put it best. He said, these guys couldn't believe that they were 1-3 or 1-3 to start the year. So I think that allows them to have a little bit easier perspective on going up against a team like Montreal, who, most people still put them in the tanking category or the rebuild category, even though they've kind of gotten off to this great start along with teams like the Philadelphia Flyers, who are also expected to be more in the bottom third and in the running for
Philly's
the first
caught
overall.
a lot of good teams off guard at home so far this season. 3 times, in fact. Minnesota last night. They did to Edmonton earlier. I mean, there's no freebies in the National Hockey League.
No, exactly.
I think the Jets are going to need to be ready for it. You mentioned you're working on a piece on the Barron brothers. I'm sure Mama and Papa Barron and probably a few people from the Maritimes are going to be heading out to Bell Center for this game. And give us a little tease on Morgan versus Justin.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's just fun to Morgan's a really thoughtful guy. Huss, whether it was talking to him about being in the Manitoba Open or we know he was under the spotlight last year with the massive gash. Everyone joking about the modeling career, but Morgan's a really thoughtful individual, and these guys are from Nova Scotia and very proud to be from there. Huss, they were the first Nova Scotian brothers to play in the NHL, let alone play against one another, and it dates back to the old days, and whether it's mini sticks in the basement or road hockey out front or all of those things that go with people of a certain age group and bracket, if you will. These guys grew up loving the game. You're sitting on the backyard, wanting to go to the NHL. And guess what? The only thing better than the backdoor rink game against your brother is having another 22,000 people chanting. No, not necessarily chanting your name. For us, as we think of the Albert Canadian Tire commercials as teenagers, right? This is what it's like in the backyard in Nova Scotia. Now you get to do it in one of the most, I know it's not the Forum, but it's still one of the most famous facilities in the National Hockey League. And on a Saturday night, when the Montreal Canadiens are a good team, the atmosphere, the Olays will be flying in there. And I think that these two guys, they have immense respect for one another, a mutual admiration, but they're also fiercely competitive with one another as well. It's just such a proud moment for the parents to be able to see them go head to head as well. And it's just a great little piece and slice of Canadiana, Huss. And it's fun to chronicle and document these kind of moments. And, some players yesterday, today, the Jets are off today, just for context. So I needed to have this conversation with Morgan yesterday on a game day, for him to spend, 6-7 minutes with me talking, rolling back the archives for me. I was so appreciative because, on a game day, some guys like to just stick to their routine and don't really want to spend a whole lot of time talking. But, these stories are really important, and I really feel privileged to be able to tell them. So I'm glad that they're able to take a little bit of time out of their busy days. And I'm excited for that one to drop later this afternoon and then to be in the pages of the Freep on Saturday here. I know it's a busy sports weekend on a lot of fronts here.
No doubt about it. Just quickly, I know you're talking to your colleagues in and around Montreal. What's the latest on the Habs going into tomorrow night's game? And I see Jake Evans is right now looking like he's in at center on the fourth line. Any aftermath still between these clubs on the infamous Scheifele hit from the playoffs a few years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, people have long memories for sure, Huss, but I don't think that I don't see any slapshot bounty sort of retribution being sought here. It's a long time ago, and I just don't think that it's there's a lot of water under the bridge since that time, and I just don't think there's been really any opportunity for the fireworks to erupt because these teams played twice a year, and one of those years, neither one of them was very good, quite frankly. So we know that from the Canadian Division days, they played a ton, but I don't see there being any spillover. And, Mark is playing at such a level, I don't think that he would, need to be getting involved in any extracurriculars in a game like this. The guy's been
fighting every second game this year. He's ready to dance.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's not ready. I'm just saying that I would expect him to continue to push. It's another Saturday night game. Mark doesn't mind the spotlight, and I would imagine that he's got other priorities in mind. Huss, that's what I see from Mark Scheifele on the daily here. So I'm not expecting any. We have long memories as well in the media, but I just don't think that it's something that is going to be top of mind for anyone.
Hey, let me, just before we go, let me ask you this. Of course, the attendance has been a big story this year, and will continue to be. We know how important this team is to the community. We know what the team has been the first time around here. I thought it was incredibly important that Winnipeg Jet fans hear from Mark Chipman in his own words. He did that yesterday on the TSN platform. We played a bunch of the clips and discussed it extensively. Overall, from what I'm seeing, very positive response from Jet fans, and I thought it was important. Just wanted to get your thoughts on what you heard from Mark and the messaging from the guy at the top of the chain here with the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, he made it clear that the Jets are in it for the long haul. There's not a moving truck. There's not going to be a Art Modell special where the truck is backed up in the middle of the night and you're driving the team to another city. Now, Mark also acknowledged that there was a lot of work to be done, and they're looking to, re-engage with the fan base, and especially with the corporate, they've been doing a lot of work on that corporate side. So I would say that efforts are being made to, ease some things over, or whatever you want to call it, mend some fences, or extend some chat ways like we had talked about. It's important for all parties to get feedback, and I think it's clear that True North is going to be listening, and they are committed to this market. So like I said, it's a three-dimensional street here with the individual fans, the corporate community, and True North, and they're going to have to find some solutions. And it made it clear that the Jets are not going to be moving on Mark Chipman's watch, and I would say that's probably good news for the community, but I would say that there's a lot of hard work to be done on all those fronts.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think, the key things or some of the things that you mentioned, and he mentioned that it is on us. I mean, I think there's been plenty of reflection as to how things have gone and decisions, made over the last little while. And bottom line is it's about moving forward, reversing this trend. And there's a lot of work to be done, but I think that messaging from Mark Chipman yesterday was appreciated by Jet fans. Quickly on the way out, we got that Heritage Classic on the weekend between two struggling teams in Alberta, but the New York Rangers have contributed to that with back-to-back wins in against the Oilers and Flames. What do you expect on Monday? Regardless of tomorrow, when we'll probably see some funny costumes in the stands, and we know we'll see former captain Blake Wheeler coming back for his first time as a visitor at Canada Life Centre.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun game. I mean, obviously things haven't gone particularly well for Blake. His role has been mentioned. I mean, he's only playing about 12 minutes a game, but Blake signed to try to win a Stanley Cup. So would he like to be playing better coming here? For sure. I would say his reception is going to be a little warmer than it was for Pierre-Luc Dubois, I would imagine. But yeah, I think it'll be a special night. I would imagine he's going to have some family in for the game, and I'm sure he'll be highly motivated to get rolling here and put his best foot forward. And we know that the message that he sent on his way out when his buyout was announced publicly. We know that the community means a lot to Blake and Sam Wheeler and their children, and I would think that he's going to soak in everything that happens with. And I'm just expecting the video tribute to last a little bit longer than the one for Dubois did, and I would say it's probably going to be a pretty warm reception.
Wiebe, don't stay out too late tonight in Montreal. I know there's a lot of fun to be had in that city.
Don't worry, Huss.
Curfew in effect.
World Series is on. Got the rocking the orange for the Winkler Flyers, #1 team in the Canadian rankings. What else did I have for you? And I'm happy to report that I did not contribute the Sports Illustrated jinx to Joel Hofer. Shout out for the first career shutout a couple days after the feature from Ken Wiebe in the Winnipeg Free Press. So happy to not be tossing the hex around these parts. So good news all around us. Enjoy the football game, enjoy the weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing your costume on some sort of social media platform here.
Yeah, I just need a Taylor Swift. That's all. That's all I need for I got the Kelsey ready to go.
I love it.
Have a good one. We'll look forward to KNR after the game tomorrow in Montreal. Travel safely, and we'll see you back in the rink on Monday for a big welcome back for Blake Wheeler and the New York Rangers.
Yeah, have a great weekend, and best to Hacksaw as you break down the NFL matchups here this weekend. Take care.
You got it. The NFL Notebook is coming up next with Hacksaw. Great stuff with Ken Wiebe. And check out the Free Press. Ken will have that piece on the Barron Brothers for online subscribers a little later on, and it will be in the pages of the Saturday edition. Of course, we had a great chat with Eddie Tait earlier on the Bomber game tonight, finishing up the regular season and getting ready for the playoffs. All our Bomber reports brought to you by Princess Auto. And Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers. And we'll be welcoming Bomber fans 2 hours before the game to the Princess Auto tailgate zone outside IG Field, for the big playoff game on November 11th. Of course, Princess Auto is where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them online or in-store today. You can shop online 24/7, 365, and they'll help you make it work. Got to thank our friends at Consolidated Supply. Of course, not as much irrigation work being done in the middle of the winter, but Consolidated Supply are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf. Golf carts is the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba. But they've also got other great options for your property, like hot tubs, which might go very well with the upcoming Winnipeg winter, not to mention amazing outdoor kitchen options. And hey, 12 months a year, they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or check them out online at cte.ca. I know our gang at Royal Sports is ready for a busy couple months heading into Christmas, but we'll get to Christmas in a bit. We got some playoff football coming up on November 11th, and the Jets back in town with a bunch of new players. I know there's probably a lot of fans thinking, oh, I'm going to get a jersey. Who do I want? Maybe one of the newcomers. Maybe you've been waiting to get a 55 or 37, and now knowing that they have committed to another 7 years with Winnipeg, it's time to get on that. The best spot for your Winnipeg Blue Bomber Bomber merch and Winnipeg Jets gear is, of course, Royal Sports, doing it for 40 years. Great NFL selection and so much more. Raptors in the NBA now back on the court. And listen, if you played hockey in this town, you know that for 40 years, Royal Sports has been the family-owned hockey superstore with the best selection for players of all skill levels and all ages. Get on down, Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. And just before we bring in Hacksaw, kind of an interesting Thursday nighter last night. Great night to get down to Boston Pizza, though, with a little double dip with the Jets and the NFL game. Tonight, we've got the Bombers and the World Series. And you know that the best place to get together with your friends for the big game is your local BP. Enjoy those ice-cold schooners, world-famous Boston's wings, gourmet pizzas, and more. And if you're staying at home, order online and get it delivered at home at bostonpizza.com. All right, big weekend in the NFL. No teams on the bye. So let's welcome in none other than Lee Hacksaw Hamilton for the Friday NFL Notebook. Saw, what is up? How are you?
Governor, hey, point of information, full disclosure. My hoodie is better than your hoodie.
Look at that one. Rocking the Jets. We're on a heater lead, 3 in a row. Big win last night in Detroit.
Well, next week I'll show up wearing my Edmonton Oiler hoodie and you won't like me. Hey, yeah, big weekend at National Football League. There's a lot of stories here. I sent the notebook headlines to you a little bit late, but Let's start about what's going on with the NFL Competition Committee. You know, we talked and we joked, Hustler, about the brotherly love shove and the tush push and all that. Competition Committee is holding emergency conference calls. There have been an alarming number of injuries in these goal line quarterback sneaks with the brotherly love shove and the tush push. And the worst one happened in Minnesota, right across the street from you, when Brock Purdy of the 49ers tried to quarterback sneak with the tush push and got speared in the helmet by a Viking linebacker and suffered a significant concussion. There have been 7 major injuries in about 4 weeks since this Philadelphia Eagle quarterback sneak tush push thing kind of became vogue. So the NFL Competition Committee, which doesn't change rules in midstream hardly at all, is talking just about the dangers. You know, historically, there's a lot of junk that happens at the bottom of the pile on a goal line play. Now you got quarterbacks getting blasted. And the fact that Brock Purdy tried to dive in, didn't go over the top where he could have got planted, tried to dive in behind the center and just got plastered with a helmet hit that I think is going to wind up being a big fine to the Viking linebacker. The league is really alarmed about this injury factor about what's going on. There have been guys who suffered dislocated kneecaps, torn ligaments at the bottom of the pile when all the bodies are crushing in. So we'll see if the league makes a change there. But that's a big competition committee story there.
Well, Lee, on the brotherly shove or the tush push, however people want to call it, this is sort of an Eagles specialty. The Eagles do it better than anybody else. They do it with almost, perfect success. It hasn't been that way for many of the other teams that are trying to emulate what Philadelphia is doing. How much of this is injury related and how much is this just frustration that the rest of the league can't do what the Eagles are doing at such a high level with the makeup of their line?
Well, I think it's all injury driven because you don't want to lose quarterbacks on these kind of hits and the collisions and then the second guy into the pile while the pile is still moving. That's what happened in the Viking game with the 49ers, is Brock Purdy didn't get much of a push as he tried to go forward, and then second attempt pushed onto the hip of the center who was at the bottom of the pile, and a Viking linebacker came flying and led with his helmet and just blasted him. I mean, if you ever see the video close, you see Purdy's head snap when he got hit with the helmet, and he was totally stationary. So it's an injury factor. You know, there's people barking about what Miami's doing. Miami puts guys in motion right before the snap. Nobody's ever done that before. Normally, when you motion guys in the backfield, they come out of their stance and they go left or they go right and they go behind the quarterback, etc. Miami created this thing about 4 weeks ago where they get their wide receiver slow-mo in motion, ball snapped. And the defenses are starting to lean one way because they see the motion man go. Mm-hmm. And they investigated that. Is that a legal procedure? But no, because the wide receiver was set before he did a slow-mo move and then went down the field. So everybody's trying to get an edge, but I think this thing is all injury related, and it's really dangerous.
Mike McDaniel been watching a little CFL ball when he's cooking up some of his plays. Well, Lee, you mentioned Brock Purdy. We may as well get to there. We'll start. I mean, there are some concerns for availability of quarterbacks in a number of markets in the NFL. We saw Brock Purdy miss practice on Wednesday, returned to practice yesterday. What are you hearing about Purdy and the other QB injuries as we head into the NFL weekend?
Well, I hear Sam Darnold is going to start this weekend against Cincinnati, so that's item one. Purdy only did walkthrough stuff. He did not do any physical exertion. I just don't know that he can come out of concussion protocol with a snap of the fingers. Raiders, they haven't decided who's going to be their quarterback this week. Jimmy Garoppolo has a bruised back. A lot of people don't know he was hospitalized. They thought he had significant internal injuries, and I don't know whether that was kidney or liver, but he's been out and he's not practicing. So the Raiders may go with this young rookie from Purdue, Aiden O'Connell, as compared to the old dog Brian Hoyer, because they turned it over a bunch last week. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, he's been playing through a fractured finger on his left non-throwing hand. They've braced it up. They put a big glove on it. He's got no mobility at all with that hand. And he's been trying to play quarterback and hand off with one hand. He's trying to be in the pocket and not take a stride where the left hand goes lead forward with the glove and the splint and can get hit. He's just not completing a lot of passes and not doing very much down the field. And that, obviously, the Chargers are struggling. He's going to try to play this week with only a splint and no glove on the hand. He's taken a little bit of risk there. A weird story in Tennessee. Two angles to the story. One, they may be about to blow up their roster. Two, they may about give up on Ryan Tannehill, who's really played really poorly. Tannehill is out with an ankle. Trade deadline is coming, so keep an eye on that. I don't quite understand what's going on in Arizona. Kyler Murray's only been back 10 days after the intensive rehab for the better part of a year with a knee. They're playing so poorly, not competitive at all. There's talk that Kyler Murray may be the starting quarterback this week for the Arizona Cardinals, a year removed from the torn ligament.
Hey, Lee, just before you move on from the Cardinals, I wanted to ask you about Murray and his future with the organization. There's a lot of people that didn't think that he'd play this year. And I mean, listen, with the trade that they made for the Texans' first-round pick, and we're already looking ahead to potentially picking a quarterback. What's your sense of Kyler's future with the Cardinals and potentially there or elsewhere?
Well, he has to prove to the new coaching staff that he's a complete quarterback, and that means not only doing it on the field, but it means doing it in the classroom, because there just continues to be this cloud around him that he's not a student of the game. Now, the flip side of that is you just can't cut guys that you gave big money contract extensions to. There's huge salary cap implications, and you can't trade guys like that either. So I think that they're married to him for at least another year with the new coaching staff with Jonathan Gannon. He's got to prove a bunch of things here. He's also got to prove he can stay on the field and stay healthy. And the other quarterback storyline is with the New York Giants, and this is not good. Daniel Jones has just taken a fierce pounding the last 3 years, and now he's out with a neck injury. And there seems to be some conversation that the injury is so significant, maybe they don't put him back on the field right now, and they'll just go with the backup Tyrod Taylor. But they signed him to a monster contract, almost $50 million during the course of the summer. He's taken such a pounding because his offensive line is deplorable and they don't have a lot of skill guys. So I don't know what the Giants' decision is going to be, but they got to do a better job protecting whoever the quarterback is. And this kid has just gotten lit up 2 years in a row, and now he's got a neck injury. Those things are really scary. So that's your quarterback report.
Well, I mean, I can't say that I'm surprised when you saw the way he was getting killed week in and week out behind that offensive line in New York. I mean, it almost seemed like it was bound to happen. Lee, Viking fans around here still fired up over that big win over the Niners on Monday night. And that win was so significant because, they come into the game at 2-4. Everyone expects them to lose and be at 2-5. Now, their schedule does lighten up a little bit going forward, some big divisional games. But, they played the Chiefs. They played the Niners right now. But I think a lot of people thought they'd be 2-5. And if they've lost this game at 2-6, they potentially start moving players. I think the Minnesota situation's changed significantly, but we did hear potential players like Daniel Hunter maybe being on the trade block. With the deadline just around the corner, what are the teams that you're paying close attention to and players that could be on the move and we'll hear more about in the coming week?
Well, they'd have a better record if Kevin O'Connell had not screwed up the play call in that game against the Chargers. But that being said, Kirk Cousins 1 week throws for 137 yards, the next week throws for 387. Wish somebody could explain that
without
to me.
Justin Jefferson against San Francisco.
Yeah, I concur with you wholeheartedly. So explain all that. I can't believe that they would trade Hunter. I mean, there's a contract issue there they're going to have to address, but everybody's got to address contract issues at some point down the road with their star players. Hopefully they get it done because he's a really fine player. It'd be less of a team if he's not part of the equation. But I'll tell you this, and I remember telling you a year ago this week that the landscape of the NFL had changed. There's a new breed of general manager that are running games, and obviously analytics are part of the National Football League now. And whereas the trade deadline used to come and go and there might be one deal or two, I think last year we had 15. New general managers are changing the way they're doing business in the National Football League, Andrew, and they're moving out players. They're moving players with big contracts they don't want anymore. In some cases, they don't care about draft capital. So we could see a whole pile of trades on the 31st when the deadline comes. Names to pay attention to: Derrick Henry, Tennessee Titans. They look like they're about to step into the land of massive rebuild and get rid of a whole pile more of people. Cowboys are really interested in him. I heard Baltimore's interested in Henry, and he's a cheap rental because the back half of the schedule, all he is due is $5.8 million. He's got a very affordable contract, and I don't think he's done. I think what's happened to him statistically with the Titans is their offensive line has gone through transition, and they can't keep the quarterback on the field. Henry could be traded. Keep an eye on Chase Young. At one time, a really fierce pass rusher with Washington. He's been slow to come back from major reconstructive knee surgeries, former Ohio State star. They didn't pick up the option on his contract the 5th year. He could be traded because Washington's season's kind of getting away from them. Something might happen in Denver. I mean, they're playing really poorly. They do have multiples of receivers led by Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. They may just say, okay, we're going to rebuild this whole thing. And Sean Payton will, bite the bullet and just start trading people to stockpile draft picks. So keep an eye on that. Carolina's winless. Jeremy Chin, young safety, has played well, but he's been hurt. He's got a contract issue. Carolina might turn around and move him. Dalvin Cook, evidently, he's asked to be traded with the Jets. He's only been there a month and a half, and he's just not getting a lot of snaps because Breece Hall is playing really well. So maybe the Jets move him out for a late-round draft pick, and he can go play his trade somewhere else. Hunter Renfrow, Raiders available, route runner, big contract. They're going to move him. They're trying to trade him to get somebody who can rush the quarterback because the Raiders' defense is bad. And Marquise Brown, the little guy, wide receiver, Arizona, he might be trade bait too. So, like I said, we had 15 deals at the deadline last October. I think we could have that many this year because the guys making the decisions are cut from a different cloth from the old-time general managers in the NFL.
Oh, certainly agree. By the way, folks, Marbles Reg is open. Put in exclamation mark Marbles. We'll finish up the week with the marble race coming up in a few minutes after we finish up with Hacksaw. No teams on the bye this week, Lee, so we've got a big slate of games. Buffalo survived the Bucks last night, and we move on to some marquee games. I want to ask you quickly your thoughts on the Vikings going into Green Bay, coming off that big win against San Francisco, although on a short week against a Packer team that has struggled as of late. Thoughts on that one and some of the other top games on the docket?
Well, I think the whole theory in Green Bay is how's Jordan Love play now that he has the keys to the car. Played well early, of late not playing that well, throwing interceptions. I think they're defending him a little bit differently, and these defensive coordinators, they'll look at video, they'll find something that really makes you feel uncomfortable, and they'll defend you to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's what's happened. But I'm fascinated at the kid's composure. And Jordan Love, I think, is going to be a decent NFL quarterback, but he's going through a bit of a bumpy ride right now with a learning curve because I think defenses have kind of caught up to him a little bit. This is a must-win game for Minnesota because they're trying to claw their way back into it, and you got to do it. You got that one win that nobody expected. Don't have a letdown, go back and get it done again. And I just think that Minnesota, with Cousins winging it, will probably outgun Green Bay in that game. Rams, Dallas. I feel really badly for Matthew Stafford because he's not got a lot of help around him in that lineup in L.A. And here comes Dallas. And Dallas is more than Dak Prescott. Dallas's receivers are starting to play better. Prescott is starting to move the pocket a little bit more like he did when he was a young quarterback in Dallas. Cowboys just bring the heat. And I just don't know if the Rams have enough defense to pass protect Matthew Stafford. New England, Miami. Now, Patriots looked to be dead and gone and came back and beat the Bills a week ago. This New England team, I don't know if they've figured it out with the quarterback Mac Jones, but they go play Miami. So you got Tua's offense against Belichick's defense. Fascinating matchup. You got a bad Miami defense against suddenly Mac Jones and Bill O'Brien maybe have found some formula that's going to get the ball down the field, and they're going to score some points. And the wild card in the whole thing in the Miami conversation, Tyreek Hill has missed 2 days of practice with a bruised hip. Now, he says he's going to play. Question is, how long will he hold up when he does play? Fascinating game. Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, the newly acquired receiver Calvin Ridley. Their offense is really moving. But by the way, across the line of scrimmage, that is T.J. Watt coming. That's going to be a fun game because the Pittsburgh defense has propelled those guys into first place in the AFC North. And Pittsburgh, you and I talked about, they looked utterly incompetent the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season, and Mike Tomlin has dragged them kicking and screaming into first place in the AFC North. So I think that game is really going to be good. And then we got the battle of the first-round draft pick quarterbacks. Now, we're not saying that Houston and Carolina are good teams, or surely not. But you got C.J. Stroud, who's playing really well for the Texans, and you got Bryce Young, who's gone through a real rugged time with an 0-6 Carolina team. So fascinating games this weekend. Not a lot of sexy games as we've seen the last couple of weeks, but they're games worth paying attention to.
Lee, we got pucks back, the NBA's back, a huge weekend in the National Football League. Oh, and the World Series. Quick thought on the D-backs Rangers World Series matchup and fill people in. I'm sure that best 15 minutes is probably about a best half hour right now with everything going on in the world of sports.
There's a ton of stuff on my website. And my one man's opinion column today was, how the hell did these guys get here? Talking about who's in the World Series. I mean, just think about this. Texas lost 101 games 2 years ago. Arizona lost 110 games 2 years ago. Now, this World Series is the Grand Canyon State versus the Lone Star State. This World Series is the farm system versus free agency. Because when Texas was rotten, they spent $513 million in 2 winters to rebuild that roster. That's why they're in the World Series. When Arizona was rotten, what they did was fast forward and push all their kids to the majors. Those kids have hung in there and have not woken up scared and have played very well. Who's going to win? Hell if I know. I think it's going to be Texas. But I think the other sidebar storyline, who's not here? That's the shocker. There's no Atlanta. There's no Philadelphia. No Dodgers. No Houston. No Padres. Obviously no Jets, no Yankees. So, I mean, this is the strangest baseball playoff series and season that we've seen. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'll be intrigued to see what the TV ratings are. Last Monday, I just dug this up. Last Monday, the NFL game drew 18.6 million. It was going against the final game of the Texas-Houston baseball playoffs. They only drew 6.8 million. So this World Series is kind of like the southwest corner of our country. Anybody in LA care? Anybody in New York or Chicago care? I wonder what the TV ratings are going to be.
We'll find out about it. And we'll obviously check out LeeHacksawHamilton.com. And gang, make sure to click the link over to Hacksaw's YouTube channel. Give him a sub there. And he's also the king of Instagram now. So check that out. Saw, great having you on the program. Enjoy what should be a great sports weekend. And we'll catch up next week.
Hey, you wear your Halloween outfit next week, and I'll wear one of my other NHL hoodies. Have yourself a great sports weekend. Hustler.
Looking great. There's the man himself. Rocking a Jets hoodie today for us on WST. The one and only Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. All right, Marbles continues to be open. We'll shut it down in just a couple minutes. So last call for that. Exclamation mark Marbles in the chat. You know how all that works. And hey, I want to thank our friends over at Little Brown Jug. Big weekend coming up with the Bombers and the Jets on the road. Great time, maybe on the way back from work or after you finish up on Friday. Head on over to your favorite beer store or Little Brown Jug on William Avenue and get stocked up for a Friday night Bombers and Saturday night Winnipeg Jets. And of course, speaking of the Bombers and Jets, when you're attending IG Field or Canada Life Center, make sure to check out Craft Beer Corner at the rink or the poutineries and the hometown concession locations, where you can buy 1919 at both venues, and our favorite generic lager also available at the downtown arena. Find out more on Little Brown Jug, everything they've got cooking, beers, merchandise, and events, littlebrownjug.ca. And they also do have citywide delivery options as well if you want to check them out there. And hey, I got to give a shout out to our pal Nick and Nikki, pals Nick and Nikki in the Nick and Nikki DQ group. 4 locations in Winnipeg and outside the city: DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, DQ St. Anne's, and DQ Niverville. And for folks that are out in Niverville, make sure you check out their new Pita Pit as well. Pita Pit Niverville, now open, healthy, fresh, delicious, fast, you know it. And also great catering as well. If you've got any catering needs, Nick and Nikki would love to help you out. Hit them up on Twitter at Pita Pit Niverville. All right, let's get Michael Remis back in here, and Remo will quickly get to the cool bet lines and get ready for a little bit of marbles magic for the end of the program. Good stuff though with Hacksaw, Ken, and Ed, kind of covering all our bases on a busy Friday here on WST.
Yeah, it was You're hearing Ed say he got on the plane for the Bomber game and he didn't know who some of the people were because they're resting so many of the starters. And yeah, this is kind of like CFL week 21 here. The Bombers are playing tonight, but as he said, it's not like the regular Bombers. Almost in preseason territory. I mean, Toronto, they've been resting guys for weeks. So we got that. NHL, great talking with Ken and Hacksaw. He just knows about everything. You get into NFL, World Series, we're in a Jets hoodie. This was fun to cover. We did cover everything.
Yeah, no doubt. Great comment from SK. It literally astounds me as to much Hacksaw knows. He is dialed in with so much sports knowledge. I swear he doesn't sleep as his hard drive's hooked up to the back of his head, plugged in. Great stuff from Hacksaw. Appreciate that comment, SK. And Donnie Boy down with the LBJ, the Little Brown Jug Cranberry Kolsch. That sounds like a good addition to the weekend for sure. All right, get in there! Exclamation mark marbles. Remo, maybe in a minute you can round that up. Let me get you to our cool bet lines. And I was wondering what the heck we were going to see tonight as far as a line for this Winnipeg-Calgary game. I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? Listen, Drew Brown's going for the Bombers. Calgary resting a number of their starters. This is a game where both teams just want to survive. Bombers are 2.5-point favorites and minus 143 on the money line. And we do now have a line for tomorrow afternoon's game between the Ticats and the Montreal Alouettes. Montreal, a 1.5-point home favorite. We didn't even have CFL lines yesterday on the Lock Shop, so we did not do a Lock Shop partner parlay for the CFL this week. But we do have a lot cooking for the NFL. Just quickly looking to see if we've got a line yet. No lines yet for tomorrow's game between the Jets and the Montreal Canadiens. That will be up. Pay attention to Cool Bet tomorrow for those options, as well as I'm sure we'll be doing a Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings contest for the hockey, and of course get in for the Sunday NFL contest as well. Speaking of, we'll go to the NFL in a second. Major League Baseball series gets going tonight. D-backs plus 135 underdogs on the road against the Rangers, who are minus 154 favorites. And to win the series, the Rangers are minus 182 and the D-backs plus 157. You got a bunch of other markets and options for the series as well over at CoolBet. And as far as the NFL goes, full breakdown of our favorite games and our best bets on the Lock Shop earlier today. Couple of key games. We talked about that Vikes-Pack game at Lambeau Sunday at noon. Vikings 1.5-point favorites and minus 123 on the money line. You've got that Jags-Steelers game that Hacksaw was talking about. Pittsburgh plus 120, plus 2.5 point favorites, plus 113 to win at home. Bet against Mike Tomlin as an underdog at your own risk. 18-5-3 as a home underdog as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and somehow 4-2. I actually like Pittsburgh to do it again this week. Eagles are 7-point favorites over the Commanders. You've got the Browns 3.5-point underdogs in Seattle. Chiefs laying a touchdown, 7 points as road favorites in Denver. And a game that's actually moved quite a bit was 5.5 earlier this week. The Brock Purdy news took it down to 3.5. It's now sitting at 4 as the Bengals. I know Winnipeg Walters fired up for his guys. I think this will be a close game. I do like Cincinnati. We got that at 4.5 in the Lock Shop. Quickly over to the exclusives. Since the 5-0 week last week for me doing the daily picks, we've had an incredible week with some of our Cool Bet exclusives. Hit our partner parlay last night for the Thursday nighter at plus 590. Shout out to Dusty and Pat for the other winning legs. But here's what we have for the Lock Shop partner parlay. The Cool Bet guys in on the Bengals at plus 4.5. I like the Eagles minus 6.5 against the Commanders. And Dusty's on the Chiefs. So Eagles minus 6.5, Chiefs minus 6.5, Bengals plus 4.5. That one boosted up to plus 615. And then the ride with us. We cashed this one last week at about plus 650, banging out a 7-1, and I'm riding with the best defenses in the NFL this week. I like Pittsburgh plus 2.5 against Jacksonville, the Browns plus 3.5 against Seattle, and the New York Jets laying 2.5, technically on the road, but playing in their home stadium in the Battle of New York, or actually New Jersey, between the Jets and the Giants. That one's in the exclusives right now at plus 700. If you haven't played a cool bet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, Remo, it's just about marbles time, I think.
Yeah, let's fire it up. I got the songs ready. Okay, we got a lot of people. This is crazy. Shout out to all the 425 people in chat.
Yes,
and actually,
hit that thumbs up, y'all.
Here, and shout out to Rob Kane has 20 gifted memberships for everyone. So they all got the microphone beside their name now. You can use the exclusive emotes. So shout out to Rob. That's very
Rob
nice.
is the man. Rob, thank you very much for that. And Rob's been gifting memberships, happened to be gifting a few Jägermeisters after the Jets win last night. That's one of his patented maneuvers. So definitely enjoying the gift of giving as he's on. And of course, really appreciate the memberships, folks. If you're a member, you'll be able to, have that microphone beside your name, the green font, access to the special emojis. And if you did want to return the favor, you can do that. Again, that's just $2 a month, another way to help support the channel.
Yeah, it's wow, that was really generous. So, hey, we got a big marble race. I just closed it. 258 marbles. I don't know if that's a record or not, but that seems really high.
That's right up there.
That's up there. People feeling good about the Jets win, about Friday. Maybe people are inside because I opened my window and it was a lot of white out there, Huss. A lot of snow.
Oh, yeah.
Not ideal.
Yeah, and it's actually still snowing right now. I have a feeling. Usually, I seem to remember, as pretty much a lifelong Winnipegger, Halloween's the day.
Yes.
Often we won't have snow on Halloween, but by the November 1st or November 2nd, it's pretty much here to stay. I would love it if it warmed up a little bit and this melted before Halloween. I'm not sure that that's the case. We might be in for it in the long haul. But that being said, everyone's in a better mood when the hockey team's winning, and we all know what's up with the football team, getting ready for November 11th in that West final. All right, well, let's do this. Why don't we fire up the music, and then we can finish off, add anyone we need to get added into for the race, and get going.
It's Friday, another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of rye. From the whole day in, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give life a try. It's time to do a marble race. No skill separated best to worst. Marble race. Just like marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Don't spam or you will suffer. I'll explain. Marble race. Into your mark before it's too late. Set go.
That was, which version was that one from our pal Tristan Rivers' music? That was a beauty.
That was the acoustic version. I've been in acoustic mood lately. It's what I put on the drive to drop my kids off in the morning. So I don't think we had heard that one in a while. So
You play the acoustic version of the Marbles song for your kids when you're dropping them off?
Just like acoustic versions of whatever bands that I like. I'm into acoustic. So that's how this started. I said to Tristan, I'm like, can you make an acoustic marble race? So he put that one together, and then he went kind of crazy doing like 10 more versions.
Unbelievable. We're going to have to start getting planning for the second annual Marbles Tournament of Champions coming up in December. What an amazing run that was. I got to still give a big shout out to Joe from Consolidated Supply, who had the idea for it. And of course, Winnipeg Walter ended up being the big champion of it all, winning the final race after qualifying in one of the qualifying races. And Winnipeg Walter has been enjoying Bomber season tickets for this incredible season, courtesy of Joe and the gang over at Consolidated Supply. So big shout out to him. All right, who do we have to add in? I think we definitely got to give Helly a marble. He's been awesome all week, leading the way, bouncing back from that first week, And I have seen a few suggestions that we give a good vibes marble to Judy Bonus as she continues to recover with Rick Bonus by her side.
Sure. Yeah, they did have a nice tribute on the Jumbotron there yesterday.
Yeah, in Detroit, absolutely. And we got to see Bones' old hockey card from his time with the Wings. That was a great one.
Yeah, so that was a really nice tribute. Just shows you how respected he is around the league with the Red Wing, putting that out there. And jump on Nick Dembski. He was a great guest earlier on this week.
Absolutely. Dembski was awesome. Yeah, Bomber fans, if you missed Wednesday's show, get over there. Maybe we'll post it on its own sometime this weekend. Nick Dembski has turned into one of my favorite people to interview, period. Not just on the Bombers. And he was phenomenal earlier this week, talking about his season, where the team's at right now, and a look ahead to the playoffs. Highly recommended if you're looking for a little bit more Blue Bomber content. All right, so we'll get Judy in there. We'll get Helly. You mentioned it. Oh, Donnie boy, great suggestion. Let's give a marble for Duke.
Duke the dog.
Duke the dog with the greatest puck drop in the National Hockey League, bar none, earlier this week at the Tuesday game when he joined Adam Lowry and the great people from the Toba Center before the game. That everybody loves Duke, that's for sure.
Yeah. I don't think you can use Duke all the time. You know, there's only so much magic, but they have won every game. He's dropped the puck, so it was pretty awesome there on, was that Tuesday?
You got it. All right, so you can put it in. Now, I did see a suggestion from Doug Phil, and I'm actually down on this. Unless you already have a good new one that you're ready to go, when you look outside, I mean, this is the definition of the slippery slopes, I have a feeling.
You know what? If I'm happy with Slippery Slope, so I picked one not as good as Slippery Slopes. That is the best track. So
yeah, I Slippery Slopes, undoubtedly a top 3 track ever in WST history, and now with the first snowfall of the year,
perfect timing.
Doug, great suggestion. So let's take it back to the Slippery Slopes, and what's the total amount that we've got in there?
I think last week we had 234. We got 262. Marbles in here.
Hey, actually, can you put one in for you and put one in for me?
Sure. You want in?
I'd like to see how I do today in this one.
264 marbles now.
264, right on. Duke SK, I love that pup. That was my first dog's name. Great name, great dog. Binaural. Duke, a hard-working professional. Great stuff. Oh, and Leslie Mitchnuck's letting us know that clocks go back on November 5th. That's the week that we get. Oh, that's the one where we get the extra hour of sleep. Always here for that. If we need. All right. Well, we played the song. Why don't we get this going up? And folks, you know how all this works. Although I should mention it, we're continue to grow each and every day. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button so you're eligible to win. We will have an exclusive Winnipeg Sports Talk hoodie for our winner, courtesy of our great friends over at Shippum & Associates. Shout out to Shippy and the gang there. And basically, we do this every Friday afternoon. It's a fun way to finish up the week. It has continued to get more popular. And this is a near record, or potentially record number of marbles in. So 264 of us in. One marble will be first and win the hoodie. Folks, let's get ready for the weekend by dropping the marbles in the Slippery Slopes here on WST. And they are off. The old Plinko boards start. Who's coming down first? Who we got with a nice start? Who's that? Ray Ray. Ray Ray with a nice look. I'm going to speed up my feed here on YouTube. Ray Ray still in first. We've got TV Day. Derek Honer, one of the Movember crew. By the way, folks, while we're doing this marble race, if you might have missed this earlier on in the show, but if you are planning on growing a stash for Movember, join Derek and a few of our other regulars as part of the Winnipeg Sports Talk team. We're going to be teaming up with our friends over at Modern Man putting together a team and helping raise some money to support men's health. So if you want to grow a stash and be part of our club, we'll get some picks from the fellas and follow your progress throughout the month. Send us an email at winnipegsportstalk.com at gmail if you want to jump on that. Jerry Beluda looking good right now. I think Jerry's got a little bit of a lead on the rest of the crew as we get closer to these slippery slopes. Jerry definitely in first right now. And then another group including Bye Bye Blake, one of our friends from Texas in here, but Jerry Beluda in first. Benji Rothman, one of the funniest dudes around. Benji's in it. Derek from Texas looking good. All right, now we're into, Jerry got hosed there a little bit. Too many marbles in that one slope. This is why this is one of the coolest tracks that we've got. It is getting very, we've never done slippery slopes with this many marbles. And I think we're seeing now that this could be the ultimate challenge. Many marbles being thrown over the top rope as well. But we've got plenty of contenders. We've got this group on the bottom slope right now. Looks like that will be the group that probably gets in first. This is this is wild. Oh, man.
Oh, Jerry's still in there?
Jerry is absolutely still in there right now. All right, Jerry is in first, but he's got a lot of company. Bye Blake's in there. Derek Schmidt's in there. Who's going to be popping around right here? We got Royster and Will Sutton, the man who takes care of business at the Gold Eyes ticket office. What's up, Will? Shout out to the Fish. I know it was sad to see putting the winter tarps on the field, but there's where we are. All right, who is it going to be first? Mason Hex, will they get in? Yes! What does that say?
Mason Harris.
Mason Harris. That's a new winner we've never had before. Excellent race. And again, shout out to Doug Phil for the great suggestion for the slippery slopes today. Reem, the slippery slopes, absolutely wild with that many marbles today.
Doesn't get old. That was an all-time track, and everyone's hitting the jump here. No one's like going over. That happened the other day, so this was awesome.
That's right. You're not in until you're in. But Mason Harris with a first victory, right on Mason. Royster, strong performance in second. Derek Schmidt in third. Bye Blake fourth. Derek from Texas fifth. Guys, we're all right there. Gordo in sixth. Matt McMahon seventh. Troy Yamomo in 8th, Alex Howe 9th, and Sean Clark rounding out the top 10 of today's list. I'm interested to see how we did. Jerry Beluda had a great race. He finished just in there in 11th. So we continue down. Will Sutton had that piece of the lead for a bit. Will, still a nice performance coming in at 10th. Look at Remis, 25th.
Yeah, that might be my best finish.
Nicely done.
Dembski, 32.
Dembski, 32. Very done. Frosty Winnipeg, the Yak Man. Here's Turd Ferguson. Mike Wynn. Shout out to Mike. And, while I mentioned Mike, I want to give a shout out to Zach and the Bisons. Mike's son, Zach, a good friend of WST and the Bisons. Big game tomorrow, 3 p.m. local time in Calgary. A win will clinch their playoff spot, or a loss by 13 points or less will clinch. But Calgary has really shocked a lot of people with some big wins. There's Hellebuck at 76th. So good luck to the Bisons. Let's clamp that dub down and move on to the Canada West playoffs. Just rolling through the rest of it. There's Doug Phil, Tristan Rivers Music got in there. I have a feeling I'm going to see myself being thrown over the top rope. And look at Judy Bonus. The final marble to cross the final marble to cross it. Again, thoughts with Judy and the Bonus family right now. I wanted to give some good vibes and have her in the race today. And then there's everybody else that didn't make it through the slippery slopes. A large crew. Benji got whacked. Oh, Ross Ransby. Ross got whacked. There's our pal Hugh Wachenko. What's up, Hugh? A whole group of Bozeman also thrown over the top rope. No one wins today in their head-to-head bet. There's our buddy the Gitch, Sean Lishka. Spency, tough one, Spency. Eric, our boy Todd Fertani. There's Mary Jane as well. Oh, and there's Hustler. DNF thrown over the top rope. Great marble race and really a great week of shows. Lots of people coming in, and listen, people are fired up about the club. I think people are feeling a lot better about everything after, last week, the way things started with the really tough loss to the Kings. We were all there as part of the WST group, the injury to Gabriel Velarde. But listen, I think Jet fans are in a good place yesterday after hearing from Chairman Mark Chipman, and nothing makes the crowd feel better than a few wins. A big question is, can they make it 4 in a row, Reem, before coming back to welcome Wheeler and the Rangers on Monday night?
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? As mini 2-game road trip going 2 for 2. What an interesting schedule. What they start off on the road, come home for 2, out for 1, but back for 1, then 2. And so, yeah, Monday, that'll be a big one with Blake Wheeler's return. But first, Montreal, and yeah, it would be nice, 4 in a row. I think they just got to keep doing what they're doing. They're playing well, and wins have certainly come.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. I mean, again, we'll focus in on the Bombers tonight and just hope nobody gets hurt. And some of these, younger players or backups get a chance to show what they can do. You never know who's going to be called on come playoff time. And that game is tonight, and then, of course, tomorrow, the Habs and Jets on Hockey Night in Canada before a full slate of action in the National Football League. NFL bettors, check out the Cool Bet and the Lock Shop exclusives. I got a couple beauties there that I'm in on if you want to ride. And other than that Reem, first time in a while that the teams have both been on the road. So we'll get a little bit of TV time this weekend, and should be a good one. And, man, looking forward to getting right back at it on Monday with a big, big game, and the return of Blake Wheeler and the New York Rangers should be a good one.
Yeah, I'm sure they got a big tribute planned, and also the day before Halloween, so maybe we'll see some big costume in attendance as well. So that should be a fun one. Us with the Rangers in town.
You got it. Folks, thanks again for hanging out with us. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. If you're having sports conversations around a bar top or a rink sometime, there still are people that don't know that we're here each and every day at 1 p.m. But a huge thanks to all of you. Great crowd today. Huge marble race, just the way we like to finish it off on a Friday. And, of course, we'll see what happens tomorrow night in Montreal, tonight in Calgary for the blue and gold, and be all over it on Monday to both wrap the weekend and get you ready for Blake Wheeler's return to Winnipeg with his new squad, the Blue Shirts. Thanks to all the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Again, if you want to join our Movember team, we'd love to get a few more dudes jumping on to grow a stash for November. Send us an email at winnipegsportstalk.com. And Mason Harris, congratulations. Send us an email as well, winnipegsportstalk.com. Let me know what hoodie size you are, and we'll make arrangements for you to pop by and pick that sucker up. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Drive safely out there, folks. Roads are pretty sketchy. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.